Hello and welcome to the Legend of Podcast Trails Through Trails, the podcast where we play through the long-running Trails series chapter by chapter, game by game. I'm your host Matt, and I use he/him pronouns.
And I'm your other host Lex, and I use she/her pronouns.
And this week we are blazing a trail through the first half of Chapter 1 of Trails in the Sky, first chapter.
The first chapter. I like it.
So, for exact frame of reference for anyone playing along at home, we will be playing Chapter 1 up until the point where you get a tour through an airship, and then some cutscenes afterwards. So, as soon as you regain control after those cutscenes and have the ability to save the game, that is our finishing point for this episode. So, there's a decent amount of stuff that happens between now and then. I'm quite excited to cover it. But before we dive in, what have you been up to since the last time we talked about Trails, Lex?
Well, I've been walking on air because the next game in Trails in the mainline series, the localization has been announced that it's going to be this fall, coming out in English, and that'll mean that we're officially caught up to the Japanese games, unless they somehow squeeze one out in the summer, but even if they announce one in the summer, I don't think it'll be released in time in Japanese. So I've just been walking on air. I was spinning around in my chair when I saw the trailer was out. So I won't say anything about what's in that next game, except that it looks like it was made for me in a lab. And I've been Googling Falcom like every day for like 2 months, or ever since Daybreak 2 came out, being like, when are they going to announce it? Are they going to announce it this year? And I was worried that because of the Sky First Chapter remake, they were going to delay the release of what's going to be called Trails Beyond the Horizon. I was worried they were going to delay it, but they didn't. It's also fall 2025, so we're eating good this year. So I'm walking on air. How have you been?
Yeah, I also am quite excited. It is kind of crazy. This will make 3 Trails games releases in 1 year. We had
3 mainline ones, because there's also the Trails versus East one that I think is also for this year.
Oh my god, I completely forgotten about that on top of everything else. Yes. For us in the English-speaking world, we had Trails Through Daybreak 2 released on February 14th of this year, a Valentine's gift. Although I think here in Australia, it was delayed an extra week for some reason. It was
I remember
the
you
digital
telling me
release.
that was so rude.
Yeah, I was so excited because, for reference, I have that FOMO brain rot, which means that as soon as the next game gets released, I immediately have a timer in my brain for when I have to finish the current game or the game before that. And it's pointless because you don't have to be the first one to finish it. I'm never going to be the first one to finish it. Just because I start it on release day does not mean I'm going to get it through it in any reasonable amount of time. But yeah, as soon as they announced that Dawn is on the way, I was like, God damn, now I've got to get past... I honestly think I'm still in the prologue of Daybreak 2 at this point because I jump between games so much. But yeah, 3 games this year. Daybreak 2 on Valentine's Day. Then we've got the first chapter coming sometime. I think we have a suggested window, but no time at this stage.
Yeah, I think there are some leaks suggesting it might be late September, but it hasn't been confirmed yet that those leaks are. It looks like a digital store posted a release date early,
That's right,
but
yeah.
it looks like it's real, but for September 25th, I think, but it's not officially confirmed yet. So, and then also fall 2025 for Trails Beyond the Horizon.
Yes, and I'm going to have to lock in on that name because I keep getting it in my head that the game is Dawn, which is not the thing.
No.
It's Horizon. It's all kind of passage of the day sun type stuff. We have Daybreak going into Horizon, literally having to check my notes every time I say the title.
You're calling it Horizon Zero Dawn. There's a Trails from Zero, so you've got Horizon and Dawn need to be the 2 other names that aren't.
I would not put it past them putting robot dinosaurs in this game any minute now. Although, when they announced the title, because up to now, this is the game we've been referring to as Kai no Kiseki, if we've brought it up at all on the podcast so far, because we did not know what the English title was going to be until 24 hours ago or so, at time of recording. I was sitting thinking, oh, it's crazy that they're mixing up the title in this arc, because it's still part of the Daybreak Calvard Republic arc. It's not a separate game in the way that sort of Reverie was kind of advertised. And then I looked back and realized that they've never been consistent with the titles. I only think that because I started with the Cold Steel games, which is just Trails in Cold Steel 1, 2, 3, 4. But every other arc, they've changed the name. You've got Sky, first chapter, second chapter, the third. You've got From Zero to Azure.
You got it right.
I do love saying Azure. And then Daybreak 1, 2, and then Beyond the Horizon.
Yes.
I don't know why I thought that was consistent. It's just, I was like, oh, that's not going to help with brand recognition. Turns out they don't care about that.
I think they figure this is like 13 or 14 games into the series. I figure they know they're not getting people who don't already know the brand play the 14th game at this point. I do want to give a shout out to a journalist I follow on Blue Sky, James Galizio, guessed the name Beyond the Horizon back in like October or something.
Nice.
And I was thinking, when I read that, I was like, yeah, but they'll shorten it to like Trails Beyond, just that or something. But no, it looks like he got it right like months and months ago as his guess for the localized title. It is a bit of a mouthful, but also, who cares? So is this podcast title. We can't judge.
Well, I'm excited to get to that one at some point in the next 100 years when I'm caught up on Trails again. But yeah, the wait time from Japan to English-speaking releases is shortening for the games historically. Kai no Kiseki came out in Japan in September of last year. So if we're saying full 2025, then we're probably going to look at about the same date, so 1 year on. And then at the same time, First Chapter Remake, or the first, is coming out worldwide simultaneously. So now that we're caught up on the games that already exist, and this new game is releasing at parity, wow, this is exciting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have to, wait for Kingdom Hearts 2 for an extra year and a half for it to release in Australia. The days have gone of that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's real exciting. Anyway, but that's years and many games in the future from where we are now. Now it's the year 1202 in the Septian calendar.
And that is literally going to be like season 13 of this podcast. Do you realize what we've committed to, Lex?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Gosh. All right, we'd better get on with it then. Do we want to talk about Chapter 1, Part 1 of Trails in the Sky First Chapter, the video game?
I think we do.
Come on!
So we left off last chapter with a bit of a cliffhanger. The airship that Cassius, Estelle and Joshua's dad, was on has mysteriously vanished. And we pick back up. We're in the Bright home, and Estelle seemingly has locked herself in her room. Joshua's, trying to call her down for dinner, and she goes, go ahead without me. Joshua and Cher are clearly worried about Estelle.
Yeah.
Cher's also over for dinner, I guess, as a substitute family member.
It was just like, oh, Estelle, look at this depth of character. She's so sad. She's feeling the loss of her, or the absence of her dad, and then, she's just hungry.
Yeah, so Shara, I also noticed that while she and Joshua are chatting about Estelle at the dinner table, Estelle pulls out her tarot cards again and also pulls out the Wheel of Fortune again. So, as we said, that difficulty with change thing is really, really going on. But yeah, there's this whole funny conversation, funny in retrospect, where Shara and Joshua are like, oh, well, no wonder Estelle won't leave her room. She's so close to her dad. And they're both clearly really worried. They're like, on the one hand, there's no way that anything could happen to Cassius because he's the coolest. But on the other hand, the fact that this happened shouldn't have even been possible with him aboard. Clearly, the way they talk about him, he's a modern myth.
A god among men, yeah.
But then Estelle just comes down and she's cheerful and happy. And she also offers Shara the brandy from Cassius' secret stash. She's like, yeah, well, he got himself fucking vanished mysteriously, so you can have his 20-year-old Steinrose brandy. And Shara is so tempted. She almost does it.
Yeah. And then she offers it to the kids as well, I believe. It's like, hey, do you want to get drunk about your dad? 16-year-old child? Girl child, boy child?
I mean, Cassius did offer Joshua that booze in the prologue, and he trained Shara, apparently, so maybe she's just doing what she was taught by him.
Yeah, that's concerning, but also kind of sweet to honor him in his alcoholism.
Yeah. Well, what's also really funny is that, and I know from later games that in Zemuria, they treat all around the continent, the drinking age is the same in Japan, which is 20. So it's even, I think with you in Australia and me in Canada, we're used to drinking age in the teens, 18 or 19. I think you have 18.
Yeah, we have 18.
So we're saying, well, 16-year-old drinking, they're underage, but no, it's 20 is the drinking age here. So not as bad as the US, but they're pretty underage there. Keep being offered booze.
Yeah, if I was comparatively 14 years old and a grown-ass adult was offering me booze, I'd be like, this is not a good adult to be around.
Yeah, unless it's champagne on New Year's Eve, a tiny bit. Like,
exactly, yeah.
Not that I wasn't getting booze other places, but not from an adult.
But yes, after some breakfast booze, essentially, it's time to discuss next steps. We have a missing papa and we need to do something about it.
What I love about this is Estelle comes down and she's like, oh yeah, sorry, I was just packing. I couldn't find my favorite underwear. Turns out they were stuck at the back of the drawer. Anyway, now I'm all packed. And they're like, what? Are we going somewhere? And she's like, duh, we're about to leave. Well, I think it's dinner time and they're going to sleep and then leave in the morning. I think that's what it was. But Estelle's like, obviously we're going off to find Dad. We're going to go look for the airship. She has not talked about this with anyone. She's just already packed. You know, I got to appreciate she's a go-getter.
She is. She's very proactive. She's like, obviously this is the solution, so everyone should just get on my level.
Yeah.
Also, just really unabashed about telling her brother and this adult that she idolizes in her career, who's kind of her teacher/boss. Oh yeah, I couldn't find my undies.
Yeah.
But I figured it out. Like, she's an open book every moment of every day.
She really is. I love her so much. She doesn't think anything bad's happened to her dad. Like, it's clear that she is not... I mean, I think she's, like, suppressing being worried about him a bit. I don't think she's truly 100%. I don't believe anything bad's happened to him. But the way she talks, she's like, I don't think anything bad's happened to him. I just, I don't like sitting around waiting, so I'll go find out where he is. So going to Bose, which is...
the home of the speaker.
Yes. They do have a lot of loud people there, so I guess it works. And Shira is going to come with us, which is very exciting. She's going to join us. She's going to be our little big sister tag along. She wants to know what's happening to Cassius too, and she's going to, supervise, make sure Estelle doesn't walk off of a cliff accidentally. So
very appreciated, because it's quite likely. I also made a note that it seems like Joshua and Estelle getting hired as bracers has immediately left the entire Rolent branch understaffed. We got hired, Dad went missing, we're gonna leave to go find Dad, and so is Shara, the only other competent and active bracer from what we understand.
Yeah, there's this guy Ridge who seems to be a slacker, I think.
Does he exist in the world? I don't recall running into him at any point.
I've run into him a few times.
Okay.
He doesn't have a portrait, but, like, you can find him at one point. He's, like, standing in front of the bulletin board. That's about it. But, yeah, but he's clearly, like... I gotta feel bad for him, because Shira has all of Cassius's work on top of her own work, and now her work and Cassius's work is being passed off to him. I think the stuff that we had to do for Cassius we finished, but maybe there's something else that just hadn't been doled out to us. But anyway, now he's doing, like, 5 people's work.
He's a one-man guild branch, because what's Ina gonna do? Go out and take jobs? No, she's too busy serving at the receptionist desk.
Exactly. She's well, and also, you kind of get the impression, especially later in this chapter, that they're kind of like, they're also intelligence officers, kind of, the receptionists at Bracer Guilds. They've got some spycraft going on. They've got whole information networks going on. So she's, like, keeping the espionage unit all in her head. So she's busy with that.
She's still the hardest working person in that guild branch, even after everyone else has left. So yeah, it's time to head off to Bose with most of the working force of the town.
But first, Shara says, oh, could you wait upstairs while I talk to Ina in private? And Estelle's like, actually, there's somewhere else I want to go. I need to say hi to someone. And Shara understands immediately what she's saying. Joshua does not. And Estelle leads him to the clock tower and asks Joshua to climb the clock tower with her. And Joshua, they get to the top, and it's a pretty view, and Joshua's like, so tell me what's going on, because you've always avoided coming up here. I thought you just didn't like this place. Like, you never want to come up here. And Estelle goes, no, I do like it up here, but I can't just come up here casually. There has to be a reason to come up here. Yeah. Because this is the place where her mom died. Joshua did not know that. Like, he obviously knew her mom was dead, but he did not know that she died right here. Yeah,
because there is a reaction if you try and go up the clock tower earlier. She doesn't say anything, I believe. She just sort of says a ... basically. So it's obviously that there's something about the clock tower that's causing a reaction, but now's the first time we officially hear about it.
And we get the story accompanied with some pretty flashback art. And apparently during the 100 Days War, that war 10 years ago with the Empire to the north, Cassius was in the army, and little 6-year-old Estelle climbs the clock tower because she's trying to see where her dad is and who he's fighting and what's going on. So she climbs up, and right then they bombard the town. And of course, the clock tower being the highest point is the biggest target for the town of Rolent. And Estelle can't get away. Then we get this image of a woman clutching a child with a heap of rubble on top of them. And I have to say, this hit me a lot harder than it did the first time I played this. And I'm not going to linger on this because I think I'm preaching to the choir here about this. And I know that's not what people come to the podcast for. But after the images we've seen out of Palestine over the last couple of years, I now know what this looks like in real life when a parent is clutching their child under rubble. And it really hit me a lot harder this time.
Understandable. It's a pretty impactful image. Also, the first instance, I believe, of a long-standing tradition in the Trails series of portraying backstory in these really beautifully illustrated sepia tone artworks kind of depicting moments in the character's past. I'm going to be honest, at least from my experience for the series, they are primarily traumatic memories.
Yeah.
You generally don't have dramatic artwork to reveal your really milquetoast, totally fine backstory.
Though occasionally there's like cute ones. There's like sweet, cute ones. Like when they were a baby, here's the happy family type thing.
Yes, here's the Muppet Babies moment, and then we generally transition from that into something a little more dramatic. The one thing I've always noted about the series is they flash those images past so quick. Even if you're not on turbo mode, it seems like they're just like blam and then it's gone. You really don't get to rest and sort of explore those images. Kudos to the people out there who have snapped every single one of those images to put in wikis and articles everywhere, because there's often a lot of detail, little background moments, especially later into the series when there's more named characters to work with. You'll often see little cameos in the background of whatever, just to kind of link everything together. I do wish that it was a button prompt to move past the artworks instead of just like a boing, boing sort of double shot, because I do really enjoy them, even though they're not generally good news. But this does then sort of connect us back to the earlier cutscene where Joshua and Estelle checked out the plaque at the bottom of the clock tower, which details when it was built, when it was destroyed in the 100 Years' War.
100 Days War.
Oh, sorry, 100 Days War.
It was 10 years ago, but it lasted not exactly 100 days, but close enough that it's been abbreviated as that.
I think I'm getting confused with the actual 100-Year War in
That was a real
history.
conflict between England and France,
Yes, which I probably know because of Assassin's Creed, shout out Education.
I know, because we had a simultaneous war here in Canada, like a proxy war when it was going on.
Our big war, other than the world ones, was against emus, so we don't have a strong military history. We lost to the emus, by the way.
That's the best one, though.
It's a great story. Look that up. Unrelated to Trails, but a lovely piece of Australian history. We fought some big angry birds, and the big angry birds won.
Look, if we had sent our Canada geese to help you, it might have been even, because those are two categories of birds that no one wants to.
Truly a foul combat.
That's bad, but that was good.
Just gonna let that one marinate. Anyway, to circle back, this illustrated artwork really personally relates the trauma of the war back to our characters, because we knew it was part of their history. We just didn't have that direct connection to it other than sort of general terms. But it's something that's really personal to Estelle. And so just sort of checking in with her mother before heading off on this big journey is kind of important to her. And it's nice that she brings Joshua with her, because he never met Mum because she was dead before he arrived.
Dead before.
Yeah, he's obviously family enough that she's comfortable and like eager to bring him in to this personal moment, which is really lovely. Like, it does give you that under the surface layer of Estelle, like you were mentioning, that there is a bit more going on than she broadcasts.
Yeah, and I have two things I want to bring up about this scene specifically. The first is I really love how this is the first casualty we hear of the war. We know there was a war, and we generally got the sense that people died. We don't hear, like, a number of people who've died. We don't get a list of names. We're first told just this one woman who died. And the way it went down, as Estelle explains, is that her mother rescued her, like, clutched her, soothed her when she cried, but by the time they managed to dig the two of them out of the rubble, her mother was gone.
Yeah.
And I love that we get this whole story about just one death, because then every time we hear about anyone else who died in the war, whether we hear numbers, whether we hear generally that there were casualties, whether we hear other names, we know that there was just as much of a story about them, that they were just as much of a tragedy. There was a whole world in this person. Like, that's the way a loss in a war is introduced to us, and I think that's so much more impactful than saying, you know, thousands of people died in this war as just a way to introduce it to make it sound big, because you don't need to have the biggest numbers or the biggest, you know, animation of combat to make a war feel like a huge tragedy. You just need to have the humanity of those losses.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the biggest number that has the impact, it's the smallest number. And we have that. It was a deeply personal thing. So yeah, it makes sense that Estelle's all about rushing in, protecting people, supporting her community, caring about everyone, even Luke.
But then as they're leaving the tower, Estelle has a moment where after Joshua's gone down, she says, you know, she thinks to herself, Mom, I finally realized why I wanted to become a bracer. It's so I could become strong and protect others just like you. So please watch and see. I won't fail to bring Dad home safe again. And this line, I mean, I like it, but it really gets me thinking, because I think the implication is meant to be that, oh, her mom protected her, so now Estelle wants to protect other people. But what if her mom was a bracer? I don't think that's ever never confirmed in the series, but I really love the idea that Cassius, because after this war, Cassius retired from the military and became a bracer. And I suddenly started thinking, what if both Cassius and Estelle became bracers to honor Lena Bright, her mom and Cassius's wife? And I've decided that that's my new headcanon. I love that idea.
I like that, yeah. Because other than being mother and not being alive, we don't know much about Lena at this stage. And that is kind of sweet to think that the entire family went into the bracer business to sort of honor her, because that would make sense. Dad's in the army, mum's a bracer, they would have crossed paths. We're very quickly going to learn that the army and the bracers interact, and it's a mixed bag. Yeah, I like that. It's a good headcanon, and Falcon better not contradict it with first chapter, because it's nice. I like it.
I like it a lot. So anyway, was there anything else about that scene you wanted to talk about?
No, I think we've covered sort of the major beats. It is a very short scene, but it really sort of nails the point quickly. Something that I really appreciate in this early game at this stage. It's just kind of very to the point, but there's still a lot of story. So they're going to do a lot overall, but they're not waffling on at this point. It's nice to sort of see that the translation has taken those, that's always the thing with translation, even like name fields in old RPGs. They're so much shorter because you can do so much more with Japanese characters than you can with English characters.
Yeah.
A thing that's a one-screen dialogue from a character could be an incredibly complex point in Japanese, but for us, we can feel, I guess that's true. And it's nice to see that they've done such a good job. Again, if you want to know what that journey was like, check out that article by Jason Schreier about the translation. It's a great read. It's a lot. So there are trigger warnings at the top of the article, I believe. Check in before you check it out. But it does sort of tell you just how deep the rabbit hole goes on these games.
Oh, yeah.
Before we head off on our big adventure, should we take a break and do a lap of the town?
Yeah, let's do a little look around.
Let's move out!
I have been fighting my instinct, which is just to plow ahead with the story in RPGs, because I've played a lot of Trails games and everyone has something to say every time. But I made sure to do a lap of Rolent because it felt like we're probably not going to be here for a while, if at all. Everyone's making a point that it's time to move on, so I just did a lap around and talked to everyone I could find, pretty much. The first one I found right next to the clock tower, actually, is young Luke. The little piece of delightfulness who is always on Estelle's case. But not today. She drops the message that they're headed off to Bose. Luke's like, oh, what? When are you coming back? How long will you be gone for? He's all but saying that he's going to miss her, that he's really sad that she's going.
Yeah.
Which is kind of growth. I believe he says something like, we'll come back soon, which is very sweet. Like, he's on her case 24/7, but as soon as he's like, oh, you're taking her away? I have feelings now.
There was that thing that Joshua sort of hinted in, like, the first part of the prologue, where he hinted, I think suggested that Luke has a little puppy crush on Estelle, so I think we might be seeing a bit of that. A little bit of the pigtail pulling
I love it.
stereotype, but it's so funny. I didn't talk to everyone, so I want to hear who else you talked to, because I did a beeline for the quest I knew was waiting.
And fair enough, you've done this before. Outside of the bar, we had Ellie and Armand, who were from one of the early side quests. You have to help them talk.
Yes.
And now they are going on a Queen's birthday date, which is
right.
A bit royalist for me, but sweet.
Yeah, we're gonna get a lot of that in Liberl. They're liberal, but they're not. They're not further left than that. They're not revolutionary. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very cute. Like, he's so flabbergasted that it worked, and she's just getting really excited because they're going on the date to Grancel, the capital.
Yes.
For the date, and she's like, "Ooh, the big city! It's gonna be so metropolitan. I'm so excited." I was keen to. I'm assuming we'll see them in Grancel. Or at least somewhere else on the journey.
I think we do, but I don't remember for sure. I'm sure they will, because that's how Trails works. I think they were the couple who the guy was proposing in the alleyway, and the girl was like, "I can't in an alleyway." So I guess they've compromised now. That she wouldn't accept a proposal, but eventually she accepted a date in the alleyway.
Which is wild if this is the first date, because he's just jumped straight to alleyway marriage. That's a bit much, my guy.
Yeah.
Someone needs to calm down. But it's nice to see that actually, like, across the town, most people are seeing, like, positive changes in their relationships. Everyone's kind of in a good place.
Yeah, I love how these little stories happen over the course of a chapter.
Yeah, even just, like, scene to scene, there's new dialogue. So it pays anytime a story beat happens. If you've got the time and the energy, run around and talk to everyone, because there's probably going to be new dialogue. Luke and Pat's families have both settled down since they went missing in Kid Trouble Tower.
Yes.
Everyone's kind of in a good place. Pat's starting to admire his dad, and he's like, hey, books fucking sick. I love books.
Yeah.
And my dad loves books, so my dad's pretty cool. The only exception was in one of the houses, there's a guy named Fate who's who's like worrying away because he wants to marry off his daughter.
Yes. Oh my god, yeah.
I think he's talking about Ellie and Armand, but it's like, oh, they're having forward movement in their relationship. I need to make sure that my daughter is loved and married off. And then you talk to the daughter and she's like, Dad, I'm 7. I'm 7 years old.
Right. Right.
So she's a lot more grounded than her dad. I hope that story doesn't go any further. Or if it does, it's at least to say, oh yeah, my daughter's 7. She can probably wait a few days.
Yeah.
2 years, 2 decade. Other than that, I did check the job board. I'm learning and improving.
Mm-hmm.
While I was doing my run around, I checked in with Father Divine. Yes, God. Yes.
Divine. Our
Yes.
favorite.
We're going to need some sort of religious sting for every time we mention that man, because he's a delight.
We are.
He's like, hey, I've got a letter for, I'm sure, like, Father Death Drop or whatever in Bose. Could you run this letter over for him? But also, in the church, I did find Luke. Oh, no, I found out about Luke from one of the nuns, who said that they did a lesson on braces recently in Sunday school.
Yes, I did see this.
And Luke was locked in. He wanted to know everything. He wanted the logistics, what steps to take. So I think it's pretty clear that now that Estelle and Joshua have become junior braces, he's really like locked in. And I don't think that it's Joshua he's aspiring to be. I think he just wants to have things in common with Estelle.
I agree. I think Estelle and Cassius are the two. I think it's Estelle, but I think Cassius. If there's a second person who is taking after, it's Cassius, because Cassius rescued him from that one monster. But
Yeah.
I did note that the nun says, because I did talk to her since I was in the church. She goes, I guess for young boys, braces are like heroes, and I'm like, that's a really weird thing to say right after Estelle said she became a bracer because of her mom. Like, even if her mother wasn't a bracer, it's clearly it's very much, that bit about it was a woman who inspired Estelle to become a bracer, not her dad. And I was like, I think it's just for all kids. I think it's for most people. Braces are like heroes. I don't think it's a boy thing, hun.
Yeah, you can say a woman inspired a boy. That's possible.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not in the teachings of the church, so this nun is not as familiar. I don't think I really had anyone else.
Father Divine would definitely encourage boys being inspired by women and vice versa. Father Divine would have us here. It's just because she's new, this one nun.
Other than that, I don't think I really ran into anyone with anything of note to say around town. I just stocked up and got ready to head out on the highway to the checkpoint gate and on to Bose. How about you? Anything else in town before we head on?
I think that's about it. I talked to that nun and had that weird comment and was like, I guess I'm gonna dip. Maybe in Bose there's gonna be less weird sexist comments.
Fingers crossed.
No offense, Rolent. You're like a perfect RPG starting town, but let's go blaze some new trail. So I took off along Milchmain Road to go to I think it's called the Vert
Bridge.
Checkpoint.
Vert Bridge.
Checkpoint, yeah.
Vert
Checkpoint.
Bridge checkpoint. So off we go.
Let's do this thing!
And we've been here before because we went and beat up some soldiers on that side quest in the prologue. Now we're here to go through, and we find out that we have to get a pass from the chief warrant officer. And worth pointing out, because of the airliner situation, all airliners have been suspended, so you can only travel by foot right now. So usually we might still walk because, experience or character building, but now there's no option but to go by foot to anywhere you want to go because they don't have buses or trains in Liberl, just airships.
And everyone seems very off-put by the fact that you're walking to Bose, despite the fact that one of the side quests we just did in the prologue was replacing a bulb on the anti-monster light posts that stop monsters from going on the road and make it easy to travel, which, I will also note, is bullshit. That doesn't stop no wild monsters from attacking me next to those light posts every single goddamn time. Although I do have the Eagle Eye Quartz equipped now, which shows them on the map and also from a further distance as you're running. It's a lot easier to dodge these battles because a couple of times in the run through this chapter, I did reach a point where I was obviously at kind of the level they wanted me to be because enemies were only giving, 1 or 2 XP per fight at that point. So I love how easy it is to run from these battles as well. You don't have to fight every fight. If it's not benefiting you, move on. Or if you don't need Sepith, move on. I did make one stop on the way to the checkpoint gate bridge vert, though. I went to the farm, just checked back in on the farm. I wanted to see if anything new was going on. Not really. Everyone's just kind of running around doing their thing. But I did like and I don't think I mentioned it when we went to the farm for the side quest, I really like the way the chickens scatter when you run near them.
Yes.
They
yes.
just sort of move away from you faster if you're running at them, which is really fun.
Mhm.
And it's just a nice little bit of extra flavor in this world, and I don't know, it's just one of those little touches that really makes me happy in a game.
The birds in Rolent do that too if you charge at them. But if you
Yes.
manage to get at them the right direction, there's a little talk bubble that comes up for them. But they'll just make like a bird sound. They're not going to have a speech bubble come up. You'll just hear them like quack or whatever sound it makes.
So I checked in, nothing was really going on. Everything seems to be sorted since we fixed all their problems. The one other thing that happened to me right before I got to the checkpoint gate, bridge vert checkpoint,
Yeah.
was I encountered my first shining Poms.
Me too. I was going to say that. Yes. I think there's one in every chapter somewhere.
I actually had 3 instances where I ran into them over the course of
Oh
chapter
yeah, no,
1.
there's one location in each chapter where it can show up, but it can happen, like, it's not going to be there every time. There's one set spot where there's a chance of one showing up. So yes, I ran into a shining palm, and those are your metal slimes, right? Those are your things that are going to drop a bunch of experience and Seabith and whatever goodies.
So if you think of any RPG you've played, you'll usually have, like, yes, in Dragon Quest you've got the slimes, where you'll have different versions of that monster over the course of the game, and like an ultra rare one. I'm trying to think, like, cactuars, I guess, would be the equivalent in Final
Cactuars, yeah.
Fantasy. It's something it's quick, it's hard to hit, it's going to run away. You don't have much time to really execute on it. But if you do manage to take out these shining Poms, who are little cuties with wings and halos over them, and a Pom is basically like a little nondescript blobby critter. They're just like a blob with feet, basically. They got cute eyes, they're recognizable. Normally you're taking them out in one hit, but these guys, not so much.
I want a Plum stuffy. Like a plushie. That would be... I'm sure they make them. I just don't know
There has to
if there's
be.
any that... If I'd have to ship it from Japan, which...
Probably.
I mean, for you, that's not that far. I mean, it's far, but...
It would be cute. But yeah, they are immune to magic, pretty much. Like, you're not going to hit them with any
to elements,
arts.
yeah.
You just got to hope you can smack them with an attack. I was lucky. I had an S-craft ready to go. I was still only able to take out one of the 3, but it did give me an immediate, meaty boost to XP, which definitely made me feel a lot more confident for the rest of the chapter. Yeah, it was very exciting, because I don't think I've even run into a Shining Pom in every game that I've played from the Trials series. So to get it so early on was kind of exciting for me.
I noted the element thing because I had a talisman equipped that gives you earth-based attack and defense, which meant that when I did Estelle's S-craft, it took no damage whatsoever.
No!
Because it's immune to earth. But Joshua's S-craft took it out, so we were good. But I forgot that I had that equipped.
As I've noticed, Joshua's S-craft has not been helpful for me. It keeps missing, just entirely.
Ooh.
And I didn't know that
That's not
S-crafts could do that. You shouldn't be able to miss with your limit break. That's so cruel.
That's awful. I'm
Because
so sorry for your struggles.
Every time I watch it, you can't skip the S-craft animation, but you can turbo it. So I turbo through and just see Josh go do all this little stuff, and then come back, and the enemy's taken no damage. It's very upsetting, especially because then you have no CP to do anything else with. It's just like a swing and a miss. That's something I'm having to get used to. Time will tell if maybe he gets better at hitting things with his swords.
We hope so. We can hope. So we get to the gate, and we have to get the pass from the warrant officer. So I go to see the warrant officer, and he's like, by the way, if you're going to a Haken Gate, don't mention that you're bracers. And we're like, why? And he goes, I can't tell you anymore. Just trust me. So we're like, well, okay. How about that?
Log that away.
And we go through. We get a cute little animation opening the gate and go through the gate. I also found a monster on the East Bose Highway, which we're on now, that clearly was part of a quest that I hadn't even picked up yet, and it was there, and I took it out. And I met some guy named Grant, who has a portrait. He's another bracer, and he was on some kind of escort mission. He mentions something else that ties into what that warrant officer was saying. He's like, ask the receptionist at the next guild, because I can't explain what's going on, but there's stuff going on. So we all take note of that.
I don't think I ran into Grant at this point. I must have missed him. What I did see at the gate, though, was that I talked to one of the guards, and he's like, hey, my boss won't let me read, so do you want this book? And he handed me Carnelia Chapter 2. It's like, it's not good that your boss doesn't want you to be literate, but thank you for the book. I did miss Chapter 1 in the prologue, so I was like, cool, I guess I'll learn where this story's going from context.
You can pick it up in the Bose Marketplace.
I did learn that after the fact, which was a great relief. Normally you don't get an opportunity like that till right at the end of a game to maybe buy the things you missed. I was like, cool, gonna grab that. I also made note that when they let us through the gate, they basically have a garage door clicker to open this checkpoint gate. It doesn't seem very secure that it's a sliding door.
No.
The whole point of a gate is it's either meant to be something that drops down with gravity or a drawbridge, maybe. But no, this one's just a sliding
Yeah.
door that they kind of bring across, which is hard to protect, especially if you've got a garage door
Yeah.
clicker.
If someone else gets their handle click, or if it breaks and it's like either closed or open, it's just going to be stuck like that.
Oh, no, I did run into Grant because I made a note. He's hauling cargo or something with what seems to be
Yeah.
a hover bike. I couldn't tell what it was
It's like
meant
some
to
sort of
be,
track
but
over bike. I'm not sure if it's just the sprite makes it look weird. It was some sort of one of those things you'll see at airports that are like little, like almost like the golf cart type things. That's what I thought of.
yeah, it definitely looks like it's hovering because of the way the sprite is moving. It's kind of
Maybe.
gliding up and down. And I feel like I've seen in the Crossbell games they had motor vehicles and they shook them in a different way that's kind of a vibration that suggests like an engine running. But this one's just kind of gliding. So maybe it's like a mini airship technology or something?
Maybe. I don't know. I guess we'll see in the remakes. We'll see what the bikes are doing in 3D. Because I never noticed that.
We get told to go talk to Ludgren at the guild in Bose, which is the second biggest city compared to the capital. Someone also notes at this
Yeah.
point. So I'm quite excited to see sort of the scale of the second biggest city in the game compared to Rolent, which for a starting town is pretty big. It's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
Now it's time to finish our journey to Bose.
We get to Bose. We see that it's a commercial center, Shara tells us. There's a big market.
Mm-hmm.
And Estelle and Joshua are both like, wow, it really is a city. It's big. They also note that, unlike Rolent, all the buildings are made of stone here, and they're all
Yes.
bigger. And I thought that was like an interesting little note that they gave, because that is something that you would notice if you never really left your hometown and then all the buildings are made of something different. That is a thing you'd notice. But that's not
Yeah.
a thing that usually gets commented on in a game. People don't usually comment on that, but it is a thing you would notice.
They kind of rely on you just by scale or like how it's showcased to kind of interpret that it's impressive. But it is nice to have a
Yeah.
little bumpkins go like, look, they make their houses out of bricks. Isn't that exciting?
Yeah.
Because Rolent does have paved roads, so they just
Yeah.
haven't quite made it to replacing all of the houses. Because you're living in a
I guess
a
so.
log cabin out in the forest full
Yeah.
of alcohol, probably not the safest home, Mr. Bright.
They have alcohol, wood, and flames that they cook with. It's disaster waiting to happen.
Especially with Estelle cooking. Let's not
Oh,
tempt
God.
fate. So yeah, I was quite excited to run around Bose and kind of check things out before diving into any story.
Yeah.
In the markets was one of the first places I went because I just wanted to see what was on offer. One of the merchants told me that Bose as a whole is a polite city. That's kind of their reputation. And I was like, okay, what are you saying about Rolent, bitch?
I don't think they count it as a city. I don't think they count you. You're a
It's...
country bumpkin. You're a town at best.
But I enjoyed running around the market. There's 4 or 5 different stores that you can find there, although they're not very
Yeah.
well signposted who's a shopkeeper and who's not.
No, you kind of just have to talk to people and hope that
Yeah.
you'll find them all.
But I did find the magazine store where I was able to get my missing chapter. You pay a premium, 1,000 mirror, but
Yep.
I sure did because I want that collection.
Yeah.
They've got some ingredients, some medical stuff.
There's an accessory, I think.
Oh,
There was
yes.
a work helmet that gave me some defense, some ingredients for cooking. There's 2 ingredient shops, and there's comments. Everyone in all the merchants are making comments about how supply chains are struggling because of the whole airship not being running thing. So the produce guys, I think, are mentioning hiking up prices because of this, which we'll circle back to. The first place I went, I didn't hit up the marketplace first. I went to church because Father Divine told me to do something, and when Father
True.
Divine tells me what to do, I do that. So I go, and oh my gosh, the priest here looks exactly like Father Divine. It's almost like they have the same sprite.
What?
And we get some lore about Father Divine here. Apparently he is a, quote, master of medicine. He's famous,
Okay.
used to work at the cathedral in the capital in Grand Salle. And so, as a note, the church, not only do they run the whole education system for, like, anyone under 16 or whatever, but they also run the whole healthcare system for the continent. They make all the medicine. Though they don't run the whole health. There are hospitals that are not owned. The hospitals and stuff are not owned by them. There's clinics, whatever, but they make medicine. They're like the pharma monopoly. I don't think they charge for it, as far as I know. But the merchants that sell their stuff definitely charge. But yeah, so the church makes medicines, and it turns out that Father Divine was known for his mastery of creating new medicines, and so the letter he was sending was a new formula for a new medication he's devised. And bracers always use Father Divine's medication, which is pretty cool. We also got a little bit of a character description of Father Divine, where Father Holstein says, Father Divine is very strict with himself. Whenever he admonishes someone, he's always admonishing himself as well. So now I wonder if all that stuff about inner darkness and haunted by sins of the past, he said last chapter, I wonder what his backstory there is.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, watch any season of RuPaul's Drag Race and you know that any drag performer has a tragic backstory.
It's true.
But yeah, I also made a stop off at the church to drop off Father Divine's letter. I was surprised to hear that he's like a medical genius.
Yeah.
Every time I learn something new about the Septian Church and how many different things they're involved with, it feels like it's going to turn bad, but it doesn't, which is nice. It's nice to have that kind of expectation of a religious body undermined, especially in a video game where the church is often evil.
Yeah, you're always killing God.
Dropped off the letter, so it's nice to know that I hadn't missed a quest again.
Yes.
Next place I stopped in was the Orbital Factory because early in the game I am obsessed with getting more slots open on my orbments, on my magical pocket watch, because already Estelle was useless for casting at the start because I think she only has 50 EP, the points that you use to cast spells with, all of which cost about 10, so you can wipe her out in a battle. But by this point I was already at, I think, 130 EP with her from the slots I'd managed to unlock.
Yeah.
So it definitely felt like magic was more practical in fights because the items that recharge your EP are not the cheapest.
They're not. And not every store seems to have them.
Exactly. And I don't want to waste my money, especially when I'm being given so little this early in the game.
Yes.
So I try to just one and done it with a trip out to cast all my spells and then just go rest at an inn or something before I have to pay to recharge it. I'm not made of mirror.
The inns cost a lot less than an EP recharge, and the EP recharge medicines don't necessarily recharge all your EP, depending on your max EP. It's usually the better move if you can easily get back to an inn. There were a few people outside of the church who are going to come back up in just a few short minutes. 2 characters you're going to meet pretty soon. But what I thought it was really cute that if you do fill out this quest that you're supposed to do, the hidden quest, it's not supposed to do. It's you have to go to your way to do it. But if you do it, you do get led to a little preview of characters you're going to meet later in the chapter. It's like a cute little extra reward. It'll give you a little preview. I thought that was cute.
I don't know if I caught this one.
Maybelle and Lila, who we're going to talk about soon, are standing right outside the church. And if you talk to them, you can see their portraits, and you don't get their names yet, but they're talking, and it's just kind of cute. Since I've played the game before, I knew who they were as soon as I saw them. So I thought that was just kind of cute.
I love these kind of old RPGs where having a portrait art means you're going to be important for some reason. It's always fun to decide, is it going to be a story thing? Are you going to be a party member? Are you going to play into the main story? Or are you just like a big side quest? Because
You a villain?
Ooh, a villain. I mean, you might not be God, but you could still be a villain. But I enjoy it because I don't have a firm picture in my head of who exactly joins the cast in first chapter.
True.
Like, I know a little bit from context of the other games that I've played, but at the same time, when I was in a point where I really had no way that I knew of to play these games, I didn't want to dive too far in and learn too much.
Yeah.
One of the things that we espouse, it's don't look at the wiki because... We're on the first game of 13, and you are going to learn too much. It would be so much work. I would love a version of wikis where you could input how many pieces of media from that wiki subject you've played, and it would limit the information you saw. Because I've definitely spoiled myself on stuff willy-nilly on this series. I guess we did run into Lila and Maybelle, the currently unnamed ladies outside of the building. But over in the Orbital Factory, one thing I really enjoyed was running upstairs and seeing the Museum of Orbments.
Yeah.
It's just kind of a showroom for all these things. You've got orbital vacuums. I think there's some cooking stuff and watches, and you can't really interact with any of it, but it all has these little custom models, so it's kind of nice to have a look around and be like, some world setting. There is something being sold besides murder devices at the Orbment Factory.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, supposedly, like, there are references throughout the series that you have to, not just everyone is able to buy the murder devices. You have to, whether it's because you're a bracer or because you're the police or the military, or like you have some sort of permission to get it. It's not just that every civilian can walk off the street and get murder devices. So I guess you can see why there's a store, an Orbital store everywhere you go. It's because they sell all this other shit.
Yeah, and we just don't even bother to include it on our menus because what's Estelle going to do with a vacuum cleaner? Hit people with it? She's already got a stick for that.
Exactly. She's got her own stick. It's better. One more note about the market that I forgot to say. Dorothy is in the market.
Yes.
She does not register that you're there. We all try to say hi to her, and she's having too much fun taking pictures. She does not even grasp that there's people trying to get her attention, so we just leave her to it. But it's adorable that she's just there taking pictures of the market, telling the market that it's slaying.
She's in photo diva mode, so Dorothy from the Liberl News does not lodge that we are there at all. What else? Running around the town, just do a bit of a rapid fire, because we've got a lot of chapter to get through this episode.
Yes.
Ran into a woman named Claire, who said she'd lived in Bose all her life and was about to go to the markets for the first time. Wild.
Wow.
You've lived your whole life. Where have you been buying food, supplies,
There's no
medicine?
other grocery store
There's
there.
literally no stores.
Like, the only things you can buy anywhere else are weapons and orbits. That's the only thing that you can buy outside of the market.
Exactly, and she's just tickled pink by the idea of maybe checking out the markets. Completely insane.
I'm wondering if her parents just didn't let her leave the house her whole life or something.
Yeah, is this a Rapunzel situation?
Yeah.
I also checked in at the airport to see what was going on there from the perspective of everything being shut down. Turns out even some of the workers don't know what's going on. I found a maintenance-looking guy down on the piers, the wharf, I don't know what you'd call it for an airship for the boarding stuff.
Dock? I don't know.
The dock. Let's go with the dock. He's down on the dock going just like, hey, I don't know what's going on. Why aren't there any airships? I thought to myself, maybe this is part of why we've had such a transport shutdown, because you aren't even telling your workers what's going on.
Yeah.
The air system could be totally fine and we wouldn't even know. Oh, yes. The one other person that I took note of, and not for a good reason, was an old man named Jacob just outside the markets who's got big MAGA energy, because he's talking about how the mayor is such a great leader because she's such a great businesswoman.
Yes.
At this point, I was like, I don't like this man. It feels like his sprite has a red hat, even though it doesn't. It didn't leave me with the greatest first impression of the mayor at this stage before identifying who she was.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, this does not seem like the kind of person who supports a good mayor. But this is a fantasy world, so who knows? I think that was about all I did before finally giving in and running into the guild.
And we get lots of juicy shit as soon as we get to the guild. First, we learn that while the guild... we meet Lugran, who's the guild receptionist here, so the intelligence officer on duty, because the receptionists have their own spy network, so he knows everything. And we learn that while the army and the guild, officially cooperate with each other, there's actually a lot of tension and jurisdictional disputes between them, which I love this kind of nitty-gritty of this stuff, so I'm all in for that. The general who runs Haken Gate, and Haken Gate, unlike all the checkpoint gates that we're talking about, this borders on the Empire, the one that we had a war with 10 years ago. So this isn't just a gate to go from, one city to another. This is an actual border with another nation. And the guy who runs it hates bracers. And that's why everyone keeps telling us, if you have to go there, don't mention that you're a bracer. We also learn some nice bureaucracy about how junior bracers work, which is that they have to transfer their registration from branch to branch in order to operate in different places, whereas senior bracers could just go wherever they want. But of course, unlike real bureaucracy, they literally just need to sign one paper and it's all taken care of, and the paper's ready for them right there. They don't need to wait. They don't need to find anything. They don't need to do multiple copies. They don't need to wait to get a call from the guild saying, okay, your paperwork's ready, you can come down now. No, it's just right away.
It's literally just an A4 sheet of paper that says, I work here now, with a dotted line at the bottom. I was interested in that. We do have to fully relocate our jobs from office to office to get these recommendations as we travel around Liberl to finally become full-on senior bracers. And it was nice to see as well that the transfer to the new job happened at 3:20 p.m. this time instead of 3 p.m. like last time. So they've got an even shorter first day in Bose, which is pretty cool.
It's so cool. But yeah, we are then tasked with going to find the mayor. Got to talk to her.
Who Estelle mentions that she's assuming is going to be the person dripping in jewels and fancy clothes. She seems to have a very off-the-mark picture of what a public servant's life is like. But yeah, I also made sure to pick up all the jobs off the job board because I'm still learning and growing. I'm gonna get as much of this game done as possible after an initial stumble. Luckily for me, one of the jobs was, hey, I need a bunch of chicken or poultry meat. which just through grinding my way through surviving the maps between towns, I happened to have on me already. So I just showed up at the restaurant and said, hey, you want some chicken? Here's some chicken, and pulled 5 chicken breasts out of my pocket and handed it to them.
And they taught you to cook something, right? That's when they teach you to make an omelet?
Yes, I learned how to make an omelet and got an omelet and a side of philosophy as well.
Yes, I did that a little later, but yes, it was good.
But yeah, we had a couple of other guild jobs on there as well. An extermination. Was the one that you did earlier the scorpion enemy, or was that a different one?
So I found that while I was headed to Bose, so I just did it. And I got a thing that you've exterminated the monster. And I was like, well, because sometimes if it's a quest, not always, but sometimes when you approach the monster, you'll get prompted with, would you like to exterminate the monster? If that happens, it's definitely a quest.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen for every quest. Sometimes it's like you have to ambush it or whatever. But so I just found it and I was like, I'll just do it now. I'm probably able to, and I could, so it was good. So I'd already done that.
I did encounter the scorpion and tried to take it on much like you and was absolutely decimated. So I had to circle back because the scorpion and his little buddies can all poison you.
Yes, I had some poison-resistant accessories.
I did not. So poison is
Godspeed.
harsh in this game.
Yeah.
It really chunks away your HP fast. So yes, I got wiped
really
by the
does.
scorpions initially and had to stock up at the market. Claire should check it out sometime. But I was able to circle back and defeat the scorpions finally. But it was still a run for my money. I don't know if I was underleveled or just not very tactical. It took a minute and I just scraped by. I think only Shara was up with 50 HP by the end of the fight. It was not a good time. But she got a bump out of it for sure.
Oh, yeah. Did you do other side quests now, or did you hold off until a little later?
I think I held off for now. What else was there? There was one other one, wasn't there?
I think I held off as well at that point. Okay. There was another monster-related quest, I think, but I held off a little longer.
I think I took the quests, but I did the same, because after
Yeah.
Getting rocked by the scorpion, and then seeing it on that list, I was like, okay, if that one was such a struggle, maybe I'll, wait a second. So I actually ran out of town and just started exploring to try and grind a little bit.
Ooh.
I headed south of town, down the New Haven Road? Is that what it's called?
New Ansel? No,
New
Ansel is somewhere else. Oh, it is there. I'm like, there's definitely a New Ansel Road somewhere, but I can't remember if that's in Bose or in another city.
Yeah, New Ansel Road. I headed south. I found Amberl Tower, the next tower that they mentioned in this series. I did actually run over there just to see if anything would happen. No reaction at this stage, but I did actually run up a bit of the tower and get a couple of chests, just because it was tough. But I figured I'd maybe get some, a piece of equipment or something that might help get me ahead for a little bit. I think I got some reviving bombs and stuff, so it was nothing super helpful, but the enemies were a bit rough, so I was like, okay, message received, and hightailed it out of there.
Did you go back later?
I did.
Okay, me too, so we'll cover that when we get there, because I didn't go at this stage, but I did go a little later.
I also, once I'd run down there, because I went to the extent of that road, this is a location we'll talk about later in the episode.
Yes.
And then after I got back, I speared out east from town as well, because I was pretty much just exploring the map to see where everything was. Because one of the exterminations talks about Ravennue.
Yes.
Another town. And I had no clue where that was. So I was just kind of running around trying to see if I could figure out which direction it would be, find a sign pointing at it or something. And it was at that point that I realized that at any point I could press the R3 button on my PlayStation controller and see a world map that shows where everything is. So I was doing a lot more work than I needed to.
It's pretty good.
Because I hadn't explored the full button mapping of my controller. But it was nice to kind of just get a mental picture, because one of the things I love the most about these games is because the game to game, each map is fairly self-contained and you might repeat areas sometimes. You do build up sort of a mental geography of the world. So it made me feel a lot more comfortable when they said, the next thing is at Haken Gate, the place that was mentioned back at the Vert checkpoint. I was like, okay, bet, I know where that is. And I just ran in the right direction. But that was about it for running around. Then I just circled back and was like, all right, I'll do the main story, I guess.
I didn't run around all as much. I ran around town a bit, but I didn't go explore those places yet, because I knew how long I had to do those side quests. So I went off to look for the mayor, and you go to her house, she's not at her house. And the butler is like, I think she went to church. So you go to church, she's not at church. She's playing hooky. Apparently, you find her maid there. But her maid is like, she told me to pray for her because she had to go do other stuff, which I thought was really funny. I'm like, that's definitely how religion works.
Yes, delegating your prayers.
It's like doing your homework for you. Exactly. So, that's her maid Lila we talked to, and then we go to the merchant, and it turns out she's scolding some merchants who were price gouging groceries. So I love her. Immediately, I'm like, those two merchants who were hiking prices because of the supply chain thing, that came around full circle because she was telling them that you can't do that. That's not cool.
I didn't even think to check, but are the prices in their stores actually higher before this conversation?
Don't know. I thought about it after the conversation.
If you're playing it along at home, send us an email or something and let us know if you do check that out, because it's the kind of thing I would expect from this series, but it would be lovely to know for sure. trailsthroughtrails@gmail.com, let us know.
Yes. So after she's dealt with this, the price scalper, she takes us for lunch at a fancy restaurant, which she apparently owns, as well as the market, as well as the mayor. She owns everything. And then she says, I inherited it all from my dad. The position of mayor and the market. But she's a Nepo baby, but she's very upfront about it. She's like, I don't deserve any of this. I haven't earned it. All I can do is take all the stuff I've inherited and, like, try to do the best job I can for the people of this city. Obviously, ideally she would change the ownership structure of stuff, but maybe she'll get there. But at least she's upfront about the fact that, like, she's inherited this stuff and it's not hers, so...
Yeah, she's inherited her political career, she's inherited a business portfolio.
Yeah.
It's a lot to just kind of step into generational wealth style. I guess that's what democracy means in the town of Bose.
I guess. I'm not sure the mayors are democratically elected in Bose. Or in Liberl. I'm not sure how you become mayor. It might be, I don't know, maybe it's a hereditary position. But the restaurant's nice. We get a letter from her so that we can go get info from the army. She's like, I know General Morgan. He hates bracers, but he likes me because he's known me since I was a kid. So if I write a letter and I say that you're my messengers, he'll probably tell you something. So she writes us a letter.
Yeah.
I've also decided, at this point, that Lila isn't actually her maid. She's Mabel's girlfriend/wife. They're just really into roleplay because that's what their relationship is like. They're definitely married, and it would be weird if they were married and also, like, one was a servant of the other, so they're role-playing.
Yeah, look, dom-sub dynamics, they're out there. Much love to Mabel and her sub.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because you'd think so, but then Lila also bosses her around, so, maybe they're
There's
versed.
some sort of power play in there, yeah, because otherwise she's very intense for a household servant. She's a little too invested. But then again, with all this generational wealth, maybe she just gets paid really, really, really well. She's like, yeah, absolutely, whatever you need. If it gets me that check, it's done.
And then after this, I do some running around town, because I have the inside scoop on the fact that there's a guy hanging out at Kirsch Bar who gives some really good info dumps. His name is Lyndon, and I go find him, and he gives us lore. He's either a student or professor of, like, archaeology or something.
Okay.
And so every time you talk to him in this chapter, he just, like, has more lore. So this time he tells us, and I wrote it down, he says, are you familiar with the Great Collapse? Long ago, there existed a prosperous society on the continent, contentedly thriving on high-grade orbal arts, yet one day, all of that was destroyed by a cataclysm we call the Great Collapse. That's all there is at this point. Most people will probably miss that, because why would you go randomly talk to this guy at the bar?
I certainly missed it.
So I figured I'd write it down and share that with everyone. That this is not an uncommon trope in JRPGs, that there was an advanced, or not just JRPGs, in a lot of media, there was an ancient advanced society and then a cataclysm destroyed it. That's the Atlantis story. But that's the case in Cimmeria as well. And the orbal arts, which we discovered 50 years ago, they also had in the ancient society, which is cool. Ornaments.
Yeah, we didn't so much discover them as rediscover them.
Yeah, rediscover them.
Modern orbments are also based on old orbments. So it's just kind of a situation where we just kind of forgot everything and started over. I missed this dialogue with Mr. Lyndon, but the Great Collapse does definitely sound like it's important. But again, in these RPGs, I always have trouble telling whether this was 7 years ago or 700 years ago, but this one was a bit earlier on.
This one was 1202 years ago, roughly, because the calendar is based on since the Great Collapse. Or since, I guess, survivors scraped themselves together enough to, like, know what day it was.
And it's another thing that the church has its fingers in because it's referred to as the Septian calendar.
Yes. Apparently, and I think you get this from flavor text, this chapter, maybe a bit before, maybe a bit after, that the thing that kind of started centralizing the continent again, or communication on the continent again, was the church. They were kind of the first force to, be operating throughout a large part of the continent, so connecting information was being couriered through the church, so I guess it makes sense. And the only other note I have from this section is that apparently when you start a business in Bose, you get aid from the city, you get like a startup investment, which is
Oh.
nice.
Love it.
But our next step is to go to Haken Gate, and should we take a break before we head over there?
Yeah, I think so. It's a bit of a walk, so let's take a breather before we head out on the trail.
Ready?
So, yeah, we trek up to Haken Gate. I don't think much really happened on the journey there. The monsters are fairly
No.
manageable at this point.
Yeah, no, all that really happens is when we get onto like the Eisen Road, I think it's called, that goes up. We have to show the letter to these guys who have like a barricade set up at the top of the road to be like, yeah, we're allowed to pass and go to the gate. So we show them. They're like, oh wait, that's the lady in charge of the whole region. I guess we have to do what she says. So it's nice having the power of nepotism on our side, I guess.
It's so nice when it's arranged for you, not against you.
Exactly. We go off to the gate, and I pop into the bar. I see a blonde man with a portrait.
Yes, blonde-haired
Get
man.
very excited, but we don't get much with him yet. He's just there, so I decide that I won't learn more than his portrait's appearance until I've progressed with the story. So I go talk to an officer who's hanging around, and he says, "Oh, General Morgan's out. Go wait at the bar, and I'll let you know when he's here." We go back to the bar.
Yeah, the general's out on many jobs. He's
Yeah.
not learned how to delegate because he's out on every mission that the staff of the gate are on.
He's a control freak, what can I say?
But yes, it's time to track back to the bar, and who might we meet but...
Olivier.
Enjoy the show.
Olivier in a lovely blue and white jacket with a big red ruffle on the throat. He's very ostentatious.
Yes, and he comes from the Empire, and he's a portrait, so you know he's important.
Mhm.
And this is the border between the Empire and Liberl, and while we're now technically on friendly terms, there's definitely some weirdness and tension that different people react differently. But so Olivier, we meet him, and he's telling the bar owner that the food is great and the drink is great, and you know if this is how good the cuisine is at a little hovel at the border, then he can't imagine how great the rest of the country is. And the guy's a little offended that his bar got called a hovel, but he at least got his food and booze complimented, so I guess he's not too mad.
Yeah, I
Olivier
immediately got the impression that all Erebonians are these kind of flippant dandies, just kind of like flouncing through life. Although I did quickly get that dissuaded by the other gentleman who's sitting at a table in the bar, a guy named Marco, whose entire statement is, I'm a merchant from the Erebonian Empire, full stop. And I'm on my way to Bose, full stop. And I'm like, okay, great. I know what you are and what your major like obligation in life is, which is to go to Bose. But I was like, okay, so maybe Olivier is kind of a bit different
Special.
for Erebonia even.
Yeah. So Olivier immediately pegs his bracers, which is interesting because we're trying to be incognito about that. But he goes, oh, well, I know other bracers and you have the same vibe. And then we get into the reminder that this game is from 2004.
Yep.
So Olivier is proudly bisexual and we love him for it.
Yes.
However, the game decides to immediately go into having this come across by him hitting on Joshua, which again brings us to the stop sexualizing Joshua everybody thing that's going on. And Estelle goes, are you one of those boys who likes other boys? And is freaked out, prepared to defend Joshua's innocence, I guess.
Yeah,
And
she's
very
more
much
defensive
playing
than
into-
offended by it.
Yeah, she needs to protect Joshua's purity, I guess. But yeah, it very much is playing into the whole, like, oh, he's a pervert. Like, that's what it's portraying, as opposed to just that he happens to be bi, which is gross no matter when it is. The fact that it's 2004 doesn't excuse it. It makes it a bit easier to swallow it and move on, by knowing that at least didn't come out this year. Now, I'll have my eyes really watching during the remake this year to see if they've updated this to be a little less dated, let's say. I really hope so.
I will say, though, I took a couple of screenshots because Olivier's overture to Joshua is pretty well spoken. He says, those cold, flickering eyes of amber, just like a glass of exquisite brandy. You just make me want to kiss you and hold you in my arms. And his like little blushing portrait is very cute. It
is.
I love it. I did leave notes as I was playing through the game, where previously I said, hey, don't hit on that boy teen, don't hit on that girl teen. I said, Olivia, you are maybe allowed to hit on this man teen. And then I looked up the wiki to check how old they were respectively at this point. Joshua's 16, as we've established. Olivia's 25 at this point, so no, it's not okay, actually.
No, it's not okay, actually. Hey,
but yeah, Estelle's gaydar immediately goes wild. I'm impressed that she has one. I didn't know those had been invented yet.
Yeah. I guess in Rolent they know about this stuff somehow.
I also talked to the bartender after this little scene, and he's basically just like, lol, Joshua, get hit on, boy. He's just like, haha, yeah, you got hit on, lol. Which is a fun attitude from this bartender. Bartender Nolan.
So Nolan's the bartender.
Yes, and he's just loving sitting back and watching this go on, because I feel like if Olivier's been hanging out at the bar for a while, this is probably not the first time this little story has played out either. It's just like anyone, because I can't remember what exactly he says, but he's basically like, beauty is beauty, and I like it no matter what shell it comes in. He's just like,
yes.
I'm attracted to attractiveness. Wow, Olivier. Yeah. Revolutionary. Bye, King.
Okay. Just hit on someone your own age, please.
Please. I know it's a bar, but like, check.
Yeah, come on. But after this scene, which just serves to show us that Olivier is a bi flirt and everyone is distressed, Morgan is now ready to see us. He wrapped up all those jobs in the time it took for Olivier to hit on Joshua. So we go off to see Morgan, and Olivier tries to come along, which is actually really funny. He just walks on with us, and we get like out of the bar and halfway to the fortress before Estelle turns around and is like, what are you doing?
Yeah, Estelle goes full German Shepherd mode, and she's like, no, what are you... He's just like, I don't know, I'm kind of drunk, and I just thought this seemed like fun.
Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm curious. Which, you know, respect that he's just like, I just want to eavesdrop. Like, he's not hiding it. So, but we don't let him come. So Olivier gives us a sad face and goes back to the bar.
Also, we get a line from Shara that I quite enjoyed, just for future reference. One of her first remarks on Olivier is just, he's not normal, that's for sure.
That's for sure. I get into the fort, and I don't go to General Morgan. I instead run around the whole fort to see if there's anyone to talk to, and there is. Most of it's not that interesting, but one guy says the guards at Haken Gate have to be super prudent all the time, can't slip up, or else we'll give the Empire a pretext to invade again. Which is an interesting little tidbit, that we don't know what the pretext was. We don't know why the invasion happened. Not that invasions always need a reason, but... until now, we don't know whether it was just, you know, territorial expansion or what, but apparently there was some sort of pretext that was seemingly used. Not necessarily that it was a good pretext, but it's a kind of thing where if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And so all the guards on Haken Gate are very aware that if they slip up for a second, they might give the Empire an excuse to invade again. So they're very concerned about that. But that was all there really was, so I went to see Morgan.
Yes, and the very first thing I noted about General Morgan is he sucks. He's just kind of a jerk.
Yeah, he's kind of a jerk.
He hates braces, he's not pretending about it, and he's just very self-assured, very military. But the first thing we learn is that he does have some new information for us about the case of the missing airship and the missing Papa.
He accepts the letter that Mabel wrote, and he's like, "Oh, good, you're here for Mabel, so of course I'll tell you everything." And I'm like, it's a bit weird that he'll just tell civilians anything, but he wouldn't tell like trained professionals who work with. Like, it is a little weird.
Yeah, it's similarly to weird to when we went to the hotel in the prologue to find Josette. And the receptionist just gave out her details, unprompted. Yeah. He sort of gave the details, and then he's like, "Oh, and your braces." So, okay.
Yeah.
Everyone's just like, they haven't invented privacy law yet.
They haven't. We do get another interesting tidbit, which is the reason that they've been so secretive about everything is that there was a concern that the Imperial Army was responsible. This was some sort of covert operation by the Imperials, and so that's why there's been no information disseminated at all by anyone because of the fear that this was another nation invading or interfering somehow. But, so everyone's very concerned when that comes up. But then Morgan says, luckily this morning we got confirmation that that's not the case because another group took credit. And that group...
the Capua family.
The Capuas! And Estelle's like, those motherfuckers!
That tomboy bitch and her hot older brother have been getting in my face for a chapter now. We realize that we have a link to that, and Estelle kind of lets slip. Is like, oh yeah, we ran into those guys. They suck. At which point the general,
And-
very switched on, says, "Wait, how do you know them? How did that happen?" Oh
Wait, you ran
my
into them? You're a
god.
bracer.
Your B words.
Which is weird because, like, my first thought was backtrack and say, like, yeah, we visited the mayor, or we were liaisons between the two mayors, and we were at the mayor's house, and, like, there are ways you could try to get around, like, we had a run-in with them, doesn't have to mean we fought them in combat.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying that necessarily would have flown, but they're immediately like, oh shit, we let it slip. Where there's no attempt to, like, make make an excuse. They're like, no, we fucked up.
General Morgan accuses you of finagling the system, which is not a word I've ever seen used in a game before. I was very impressed.
Yeah, me too, actually. That's a good one. I love that word. And he flips the fuck out. Is my notes?
Oh, yeah.
My notes really just say flips the fuck out in all capitals. He's like, you motherfuckers!
Yeah, he's not a balanced man. He needs to
No.
work on that. But pretty much immediately, he's like, I hate braces. You as braces, get out.
Yeah. And he kicks us out. And then Shira actually yells back at him. Shira, and I was, I like this because you kind of think that Shira's gonna be like, she's the older one, they're supposed to be the more rational one, we're the two impulsive kids. But no, she yells at them. She calls them military morons and says that this is all that they can't do their job, they can't communicate, can't do anything. So the reason that the guild has to, swoop into their jurisdiction is because they're not competent. So things are getting pretty heated, and then all of a sudden, a guitar is strung.
Oh my god. I was so ready for Shira to like get out a whip and start like attacking another person, but instead
She was ready too.
Oh yeah, you could see her just like she had the Arthur fist tightening meme going on just off screen. But no, that is not the case because Olivier comes in with a musical interlude. What a dork! It's
amazing.
He's hanging out directly in front of the interstate gate, playing his little lute.
Yeah.
And I did caption what he says when everyone's like, "What the fuck are you doing, dude?" He says,
Yeah.
"Strife brings nothing to be born, but only extends the barren wilderness within our hearts. That's love and peace, baby."
That's love and peace, baby. I love him. I also know, because I know these games so well and I'm a sicko, the song he plays is called Amber Amour.
Okay, good, because I was going to ask, because it was a pretty good song.
It's a pretty good song. And Amber Amour, which makes you think, he comments on Joshua's amber eyes, and then he's like, Amber, and like drunkenly lolled that around, and that put that song in his head. So it's a song from the Empire. Like, it is I think a folk song from the Empire, or not they call it a folk song. That's not really how folk songs work. I think it's more like a traditional song or an old song from the Empire, less a folk song. Folk songs tend to have a little less lyrical complexity to them.
Still, it's nice of DJ Blonde-Haired Man to give us a custom playlist. And actually, you know what?
I appreciate it.
If I'm technically competent, but yeah, also, he's just really sad to be left out because he didn't get to go to the meeting with the military general.
He's so sad.
So instead, he's just being a nuisance.
And what's amazing is he scares away all the military men. They all retreat.
They're
all like, we can't cope with this.
I can't be assessing my sexuality and guarding the border at the same time, so I'm gonna have to go, says every soldier.
Exactly. I also love how long this song is. Like, they don't just have him, like, in most games, he would, like, strum a guitar for a second, and that would be, like, the musical interlude. But this goes on for over a minute of, like, more and more lyrics, and you can't click through it because it's timed. The lyrics are timed, even though there's no, like, vocals. They're timed to go along with the music, so you can't like click and speed through it. You just have to sit and watch the song for a minute. Yeah,
so I'm glad that it was such a good song, because my first instinct was to fast forward through it, but you can't, like, the timestamps are like hard coded for the speech bubbles. They pop up and leave on their own schedule, so I was forced to listen to this great song, which I loved. So that's great, and everyone just sort of says, okay, cool, thanks for diffusing the situation, we got to get going, and just kind of leave without him.
Except we can't live without him because we're fucking stuck with him, which I'm glad about. The party isn't.
No, they're not on board with Olivier at this point. He's hit on a child. He's disrupted. Drunkenly hit on a child. Yeah, okay, fair enough. That's not a great first impression, Olivier.
It's not a great first impression.
Before we head off, we do head back to the bar. He's like, wait for me,
because
please,
clearly what Olivier needs is more booze.
Yes, but he finally introduces himself by name. We kind of jumped the gun a little bit, but he reveals his name is Olivier Lenheim, a wandering bard and musician by trade. Which
you
I
love
said,
a bard in an RPG.
That's like a fun way of saying homeless person in the arts.
We love it. But he can afford all this wine and food that he's been drinking. I mean, presumably, we haven't heard about him not paying his tab yet, so I guess he has enough money for that.
And then he immediately tries to hit on Shira and says, "Hey, Shira, date me." And Shira wisely says,
"Age appropriate. That's an improvement."
Yeah, that's a step up. He's learning and growing. But she's like, "Nah," and he's like, "Okay, then Joshua, you date me." It's just I love the unabashed pivot. It's like I want to be with, and the name that comes after that is adjustable.
Yeah.
Does not hit on Estelle though, which is another like everyone's burning Estelle constantly. It's just like
it's like on one hand, it's like I'm glad he doesn't, because like at least he doesn't hit on both of the underage children. But
that's
it's
true.
Like,
yeah, he says Estelle is more cute than sexy. Oh no, he just says she isn't sexy, and then Joshua says, "Calm down, Estelle. I think you're cute enough just the way you are," which is lovely.
Yeah.
Then he follows it up by saying, "Though I guess it's true, you are a bit lackluster in the sexy category."
It's like, come on, guys. That's a good thing. She's 16. She's not supposed to be out there like, she's a kid. It's okay. It's okay to look like a kid when you're a kid.
It's actually fine. So chill out and stop hitting on children.
Please.
But yeah, apparently Joshua's denim vest is sexy enough to really get Olivier going.
It's those amber eyes. It's because they remind him of that song. It's
true.
all just the music. He's got the music in him. Olivier does, however, get Shira to admit that we do owe him for the fact that he diffused that situation, because even though Shira was willing to throw hands and very ready to, it seems like now that she's calmed down, she's like, it would have been bad if I started whipping a general in the army. That would not have been a good PR move. So it is a good thing this got diffused. And Olivier asks, since nobody will date him, Olivier goes, well, will you escort me to Bose? Because there are monsters on the road. So I think it's quite funny that he's like, no one will date me? Fine, then here's a perfectly reasonable request for someone of your profession. So we say, okay, yes, that's fair. Estelle's not happy about this. She's like, I'm gonna fucking protect Joshua from your debaucherous ways. But they all agree, yes, we'll escort this man to the city. So we do that.
Also, unannounced, he is actually added to the party at this point. He's not just a tag-along. I fully thought that this was going to be another situation of having to kind of protect him in combat like other NPCs we've had tag-along, but no, he's come ready to fight. And what's his combat style, you say? It is gun.
Gun. And arts. He's very good at the arts.
He's very good at arts. Oh, in many ways. Haha.
Ha ha ha. Yes, he's an artsy one. And he's got gun. He has gun.
I like gun because we've had very sort of grounded fantasy weapons so far. We've got big Journey to the West stick.
Yes.
And then we've got 2 swords, which I understand sword, so I can get to 2 swords pretty easily. And whip,
We've played Persona 5.
I know what a whip is. And it all seems on track. And then gun. He has gun.
Gun.
But it's great because he's a long-range fighter, which he needs to be because he's a squishy little man.
He's a squishy little guy. He's also got, I think, where everybody else, their ordnance have, like, sections to them, so they don't all tally together for arts. I think his is just one line, so all of his tally together. Which, at this stage, like, he only has a few unlocked, but that's still nice to note. He can get lots of spells really easy.
Yeah, you can't manage a huge amount at this point just because of what you have access to and how many slots you can reasonably acquire without just grinding forever. But he comes in as a powerhouse. The big one for me was that he has Latir, which is the healing spell that affects like an area rather than one person. Absolute godsend in this game.
Godsend. So good.
And he's a pretty quick caster as well, which is quite nice. I also took notice in the first fight, his dramatic hair flip victory pose is amazing.
Oh my god, so good.
Everyone else like spins their weapon and does a cool thing, but he's just like, yeah. He's delightful.
He's just serving.
I love him. And even better, with 4 people in the party, the journey back to Bose was so easy. Mm-hmm. It's so much better when you have 4 combatants.
It really is like, oh yeah, this is how the game is balanced and designed for a 4-party team. Are we going to have one yet? Well, sometimes yes, sometimes no, but this is the ultimate. You can always tell in an RPG, right? There's the moment where you get the full party and you're like, yes.
Oh,
And
yes.
depending on
Now
the game,
feels
it might
right.
be 3 people or 4 people, but you're like, yes, there it is.
Yeah, now I finally feel like I can handle combat, because some of those early fights with Josh, Estelle, and Joshua are really tough because you don't have time
Yeah.
to get anything to happen. Sometimes you just need more party members so you've got other targets as much as anything else. But it was a delightful trip back home with Olivier. He really sold himself on his usefulness.
Yeah, all these people, the guy like Marco and all these people who are non-combatants, they're never asking us to escort them to and from town, but Olivier could probably get to town by himself. I mean, he could, run, he could at least, throw it, shoot something and run,
Yeah.
but he wanted an escort, so, but he probably could have gotten there by himself. It wouldn't have been easy if he got ambushed, but he probably could have, he had a better shot than most NPCs.
Unfortunately, when we get back to Bose, the very first thing that happens is that Olivier leaves, so we don't get to have a 4-person party anymore.
I wanted to bring him along on all the side quests.
I thought he would hang around for a little bit longer. Maybe I should have gone out and grinded for a bit longer at this time. But he's like, cheers for the ride, I'm outies, yeet, and wanders off, and we're back to our jobs.
And at this point, I went and did some side quests. Even though I lost Olivier, I was sad about that. So I went first. There's a monster in Ravennue that was on the board. So I said, okay, I'll go to Ravennue. So I go to Ravennue. Basically, we're told that, and the trail behind the town has a monster and it's causing issues. We haven't told the people in town, but, it's a problem. So we go to deal with it. And it's kind of an interesting quest where, usually with, quest monster extermination stuff, you just see it on the map and you get the option to exterminate it. But instead, it kind of ambushes us by, erupting out of the ground.
Yeah, you don't really get a clear marker for where it is. And the map of the Ravennue Trail it's a lot of dead ends. It's a lot of sort of side paths and stuff. So you do kind of get told you need to hunt around and find it. It's always going to trigger in the same spot, but you do need to sort of wander around. And there's stuff to get. There's chests to invade, all that good stuff.
And I got my first interesting chest message there.
Oh, yes.
Interesting. I mean, it was short, but it wasn't just a joke about being empty. It said in all caps, "I am error."
Yes, I screenshotted this one as well.
So I'm not sure why it's error, but it is error, so.
I have it in the back of my head that is a reference to some other game thing, and maybe it's like
probably
all your base type reference.
Huh, maybe.
It's a cute reference though. I did note that one as well because, like I said last episode, I love the chest messages, but it's just they're all the same thing. So it's nice to see some new ones sneaking in there.
Mm-hmm. But I took care of things in Ravennue, and they were all very happy that I did. And then there was really nothing around Ravennue. I tried to go to the restaurant, and they weren't open yet, so I went back to Bose.
Very clear signals in an RPG that you're not meant to be at this town fully yet.
Yeah. I went to the restaurant on my way before I went to the next place I was going to go. And this is the Anti-Rose restaurant, the fancy one. And one of the NPCs said, "We worked our little tushes off, pardon my Erebonian." And I realized that they say the way that we say pardon my French when we swear, they say pardon my Erebonian, which is so funny to me. I never knew that. It's so weird. It's so funny.
I love it. They're just because at the same time, we do have people saying French and Spanish words all through this series.
Oh yeah, all the time.
French sort of exists unless we're just sort of quietly assuming that one of the national languages is French. We're not. But Pardon My Erebonian is great because, for a very vague look forwards, Erebonia is kind of modeled on Germany/Europe because there's a lot of German names, both in people and in locations, whereas the Calvard Republic has a lot of places, the Daybreak series has a lot of places that have French names. So the fact that they're aping Pardon My French and saying Pardon My Erebonian, when Calvard does exist at this point in sort of the canon, because it's been referenced previously, it's interesting because I guess kind of the identity of these countries was formed later.
Well, I wonder if it wasn't because the language identities was formed later, or I wonder if it's because the Erebonians are seen as assholes in Liberl.
Oh,
so if you swear,
call out the French
invaded,
Lex.
Right? Hey, well, if you're swearing, not that tush is really a swear, but I guess they're if you're using crude language, it's those crude Erebonians who it comes from.
Yeah, those nasty Erebonians.
Hey, look, I'm not French. I'm from Quebec, so I'm a bastard French. So I can say it. I can say it.
Okay, I can say it. It's okay for me.
I can say it. I could read French before English, so I can say it. but the French will always, look down on me because my accent sounds like a drunk Quebecer at a hockey game. Even when I'm dead sober, that's how my French sounds.
But yeah, I do love these sort of nods to colloquialisms. The other one, I can't remember which game I first heard it in, but telling someone that they would give them a run for their mirror.
Yes.
Just, like little like
that one comes up a lot, I think, more than once.
Yeah, so it's nice to have these little analogs. Like they always, you read it and you'd be like, what? Oh, okay, yeah. It kind of like what is it? He was traveling a Selgay a minute, like using the game sort of in-world measurements, because we can't just say meters or yards. We have to have a whole new system.
And I do think they correspond to meters and kilometers and stuff.
So
I can't remember.
Selgi and Arge and
Selge. I've always thought it was Selja, just because Arge, like Selge, I thought.
I suppose
with all the soft sheet, but it could be either. But I don't remember which is which. But it's not yards and miles. It's metric.
They're metric. Thank God. Smart countries. Pointed look.
Can you tell we're Commonwealth?
Metric, stand up.
So I also went to Ambrel Tower at this point.
Oh, yes.
And I got some stuff here. There was a little scene first where they mentioned basically that this was another one of those weirdo towers. Tetracyclic towers.
The tetracyclic towers. I did make a note of that as well, yeah. Because I did sort of head back to Amberl around this point as well.
And so I went into this tower, and they hear a noise, they hear someone talking, and they're like, what if it's the Sky Bandits? We should go check. And boy, was it fucking rough. Like, it is not easy to make it through, especially if you aren't well supplied with healing things and EP.
Reviving bombs. That's the one that I keep forgetting to restock.
Oh god, yeah. And it's also a more confusing layout than Asmelis, I found. So, trying to get from the 4th floor to the 5th floor was fucking rough. But I eventually did it. And who's there but Professor Alba again? Who is researching some, like, weird tree things, I think. Or, like, some weird part of the 5th floor. He's not on the roof this time. He's there. And I guess he did mention that he was, like, investigating these towers. But, he made it here. Which I'm like, I had a rough time getting up to the 5th floor. How did you do this? And we get a very funny moment where we're like, I guess we'll escort you back. And he's like, well, thanks. All right, let's go. Well, no, I'm not ready yet. And Cher's like, okay, Josh, Estelle, it's time for us to go. Good luck, Professor Alba. And he's like, wait, never mind, I'm ready to go. So we do escort him down to the ground floor, but then he says he doesn't need us to help him get back to town because his wallet can't take that. Which I didn't know we were charging him, but I guess he's gonna pay us.
I'm glad he made that assumption on our behalf, yeah. I actually took him upstairs to the top floor before leaving the tower, just in case there was a scene of anything, because he seemed obsessed with that big orbital machine on Asmelis Tower.
Yeah.
But there's no reaction. There's no cutscene or anything to interact with at all.
Maybe he's already seen it.
I guess so. Very suspicious that this academic keeps getting up all these towers that fully murdered me multiple times.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of enemies, there's a lot of going up and down. It's the thing that always gets me in these kind of dungeon designs, especially when there's no map. So once again, shout out to the site we will link in the show notes about those maps. I sure as hell used it this time, because you have multiple sets of stairs going up and down per level, so it's a lot of go up 2 floors, come down 1, then go up again, that kind of thing. So it's very easy to get lost. Didn't help me that because I'd made an initial foray into the tower and then ducked out, there were a few chests that were emptied, so I kept making myself more lost by not having that as a signifier for where I'd already been, because I didn't plan the first time going in. But made it to the top, got the professor, made it back down, and then it's time to take him home.
I also got two more chest messages that I noted down because they were cute. So one chest in Ambrel Tower read, "It's empty, but you notice something carved on the bottom. The secret password is ... Chairman Meow." I
screenshotted this one as well because I have no idea. Is that a reference to something, or is that a password I'm going to get to use someday? Or is this that thing you mentioned last time where it was like they were going to hide passwords?
I'm wondering if it's that. Or it's just, a joke on Chairman Mao, Chairman Meow, but not for anything. Or it's a reference to somebody. If you know what this is referencing, like, please, write in to the show. Let us know. The other one I noted, it wasn't that different, but a little bit. It said, limit, 1 per adventurer, dev team. Which was kind of cute, like, fourth wall breaking. Like, only 1 per adventurer. That's the reason that you can't get more from opening chest. But the cute little dev team thing, I thought that was cute.
Yeah, I really like that they're starting to expand on these. We're still going to get a lot of the chest is empty variants, but seeing these ones dropped in, I'm really excited.
Now at this point, I think this wrapped up all the side quests that were left. The Amber Tower thing, for what it's worth, it's not on the side quest thing. It's like a secret thing. You can, if you go at the right time, you'll find this stuff.
Yeah, but obviously it's very time limited considering we both trekked to the tower, had no reaction, and then after a very short number of story moments, it was active, only to be deactivated again after a few more story beats. So it pays to explore or have a walkthrough.
It really does. Yes.
But yeah, it's time to be back in Bose for the stories.
Went to report to Mabel. That's what I did next. Because now we told her what Morgan said. We get another entry here in the everyone but Estelle thinks Cassius is a big fucking deal, because they mention that Cassius is their dad, and Mabel's like, Cassius Bright? You mean the Cassius Bright? And they're like, yeah. And Estelle again is like, that's stupid, no good middle-aged man. Like, she does not think her father is anything. And everyone else is like, this man is a god.
Yeah, she's so looked in on this thing, which is a very kid thing to do. You kind of take that snapshot of your parents, and that's just sort of locked in until enough evidence mounts against it to reshape your worldview.
And he's such a goober that I understand why, like, if you've been raised around the goober Cassius Bright, you can't put together that he's this, walking myth, because he's a bigger dork than Estelle somehow.
Yeah, he definitely feels like the kind of warrior who, in an anime, he'd be drawn with big round eyes for most of the scenes, but when it comes to a fight, he gets like the sharp, angular eyes instead because he's shifting personas. But Estelle has only ever seen round eye Cassius, so she's holding fast. She's like, no, my dad fucking sucks. Why don't you people get this?
Yeah, well, because she's like, he's always going away and, like, leaving us on his own. And meanwhile, everyone knows the stuff he does when he's off away from home. But she's just like, he's just useless being away, and I have to cook, and I can't cook. So Joshua and I got food poisoning because of my dad. So then my notes say, Estelle says something smart, and everyone is shocked, speechless.
Yeah.
And I think what this was pointing out that that they were, instead of just trying to comb the whole region for the Sky Bandits, they should be a bit more strategic in thinking about where they might look for them. It was something along those lines, but the real impression that scene made on me was the fact that Estelle said something smart and everyone was shocked, speechless. So
yeah, poor Estelle. I hope she gets her flowers eventually, because everyone's just walking in with the worst opinion of her. But she's just a girl frustrated at the world.
She is. So they decide basically that they need to investigate, they need to find the Sky Bandits now that we know that they're responsible, because we got useful info out of Morgan before he kicked us out, and that's good.
Yep.
And now Mabel knows, and she can also she's also glad, because she's like, now I have enough information that I can at least like figure out a way to address the concerns of the townspeople, as opposed to just like also floundering because I have no idea what's going on. So she's grateful. So we then are like, well, we need to find info, and a little earlier we saw Niall and Dorothy around town.
Yes.
And we go, well, maybe Niall's found some info, because he's a journalist. He seems like he has sources, so we're going to try that.
We learned he has journalistic integrity, so we're hopeful that he might be a good source. We also got a hint that the Liberl News also makes a guidebook for traveling around, because there's references to the guidebook they published, which Joshua thinks is really high technology, because the idea of guidebooks is living in a really convenient age, according to him.
Yeah.
But that's a weird metric to have, when it's like, we've got airships and we can make fire out of our watches, but having a book that says where stuff is like crazy, though.
Yeah, I was about to be like, this has been around forever, but I do have like 2 or 3 on my bookshelf next to me right now, because probably nowhere I've actually been. I can see one for Sienna right now. I think when my parents were moving once, my mom had some books, and she was like, are you ever you like to travel, you want these? So I took them, but they've been around for a long time.
Maybe not up to date.
New here, and I doubt they're new there, because as long as the printing press has existed, people have been writing about things that are useful to know.
Yeah, well, the printing press has to exist. I'm sure Liberl News are not writing out the newspapers by hand.
No, we know the printing press exists, and we have all those books we have to collect all
the
time.
We know about books, so I don't know why guidebooks are such a big thing.
But before we go to find Niall, I went because our buddy Lyndon with the info. I went to find him again because story beat happens, so
Oh, yeah.
Lyndon might have more stuff, and he did not fucking disappoint this time. Let me tell you, he had some good shit.
Ooh.
He told me that the development of orbital arts was far superior before the Great Collapse. We're still discovering orbital relics from that era. That's what people mean when they say they've unearthed an artifact. So artifact does not mean what we mean, which is just like anything old or anything example. Like we use it in a bunch of different ways, right? It might mean some old thing. It might mean this is an artifact, like a representative of a culture. It might just mean it's dated. It might be whatever. It specifically means a piece of orbital technology from the society that lived more than 1,200 years ago, and that's going to be relevant. So thanks, Lyndon, for giving us that info. Lyndon is going to come in even more clutch later on this chapter, but I won't get there quite yet. It's pretty soon, but not yet. Lyndon was on the way to Niall because he's also in the bar, and Niall, of course, is in the bar and very hard to find because he looks like any NPC, except he's also kind of blending in with the table.
Yeah, I did notice that. He doesn't really stand out in the bar the way he did in the
It's
prologue.
hard to find him.
Because I had toured through the bar earlier on, and I had not flagged that Niall was there in the way I'd flagged Dorothy was there.
Yeah.
Which was kind of odd. Because we also don't get, quest markers in this game, so it is about exploring and finding. Oh, one thing I did notice that I think must have been out of order, when Olivier leaves the party, he says, "Adios, amigos." So just another example of...
He speaks Spanish, too.
Some Spanish slipping in there. And as he leaves, Estelle's really worried about Erebonians as a whole, based on her sample size of 1, that they're all just queer weirdos who are going to hit on her brother.
Yeah.
Josh is also oddly concerned that this is the standard personality for an Erebonian, because he sort of gets a bit quiet, and then he says that he was of the understanding that all Erebonians are kind of the strong, silent type. It's a very stoic group. Really upset about Olivier not adhering to that, and doesn't really expand on
Yeah. Or maybe he seems worried that he's worried that Olivier is going to change everyone's impression of Erebonians, and that it's like a brave new world of queerness, and he doesn't like that, which is not good if he doesn't like that, but...
Work on yourself, Josh.
That Olivier's single-handedly going to overthrow all the impressions the Liberlians have of this country, because he's that much of a force. Which is understandable, because he could.
Olivier Lenheim is the gay agenda.
He is, and we love him for it. So we talked to Niall then, and Niall and I, we agree to a quid pro quo, right? We'll tell him what we know, he'll tell us what he knows, it's all great. Yep. So he's like, okay, but my intel isn't actually that good. I have some, but it might be nothing. And we go, okay, thanks for disclosing that up front. So he tells us that some kid in Ravennue saw a big shadow overhead the night of the incident. So my first thought was, okay, so now airships make a commotion. They didn't when they were robbing the mayor's house in Rolent. Maybe you were right. Maybe it was like a grappling hook thing, and it wasn't the airship docking on the balcony. Maybe I was a little getting ahead of myself there. But
also, country towns, everything's smaller. They're not used to looking up. Maybe that's it.
This is true.
We're in the big metropolis of Bose. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for covering me here. So we're all like, that's kind of lame. That could be nothing. That could be a kid who thought he saw like a dragon. And he's like, yeah, I told you it wasn't much. But the other thing I know is that the intelligence division is on the move with regards to what's going on. And we get some info on the intelligence division, which is a royally sanctioned branch in charge of intelligence gathering and dissemination. So it's what you think an intelligence division is, basically. But it sounds like it's kind of a new concept. Like, I mean, I'm sure there were spies beforehand, because like spies have existed for about as long as nations have in some capacity. That's just how it is. And we know that the Bracer Guild's been around for a little while, and you know, all their receptionists are intelligence officers on the down low, so
everyone's doing it.
To be clear, if someone's been listening and is like confused, they're not actually literally intelligence officials. They serve that function. They have that capacity. And also somebody called Colonel Richard is in charge.
Yeah, with like the boringest name. It's
right?
Like Michael Richard or something? Alan Richard.
It's Alan Richard. And it's like, so normal dude.
They could have made him sound a bit like Snape, so he at least gets some sort of reference out of that. Alan Richard, Alan Richman. But they don't even do that. He's just Mr. PR for the army, basically.
So we learn that, And that's interesting because it means that multiple branches of the army are investigating this incident. So that's interesting intel, but we're not really sure how it's going to apply to us. But that's that. So now at this point, there's also a new side quest that pops up. That you can escort someone to Crone Pass, which is the next gate leading to the next region over.
Yeah.
But before I do that, I talked to Lyndon again, and this is when he says the most interesting thing he says all chapter.
Ooh.
He says that he particularly studies ancient dragons.
Oh, okay.
And apparently, ancient dragons were actually pretty common until the Orbital Revolution. They were a pretty common sight. And now that ever since the Orbital Revolution happened, which is when like Orbman technology was discovered about 50 years ago, they've gone almost extinct. Or whether they're extinct or not, I guess we don't know because we haven't found bodies, but they've just almost vanished. But they used to be, until 50 years ago, ancient dragons were a really common sight. And now they're almost vanished. And Estelle knew this. That's almost the most interesting part.
Oh, wow.
Is that Estelle's like, oh yeah, because he says that he studied ancient dragons and they used to be common. And Estelle's like, oh yeah, and then they kind of vanished when the Orbital Revolution happened. And Josh was like, the fuck? And Estelle's like, I'm sorry, in Sunday school, when dragons came up, I listened.
Okay, yeah, that's great. I missed all this. I thought I was doing better at checking in with NPCs, but I'm clearly missing the goat.
One guy who he had different dialogue before and after talking to Niall. Like, this is so like.
No wonder the script for this game was so huge. Good lord.
Oh my god, yeah.
But yeah, I did the escort mission as well. It's pretty easy going. It's just walk in there. You do get one fight against, I can't remember the enemy type, but I just refer to them as those fucking sheep.
Creepy sheep. The
creepy sheep.
The fucking sheep.
I've encountered these in multiple of the Trails games that I've played as just like a bit part boss, and they are so infuriatingly hard to beat.
They're the
worst.
They're
bouncing all over the place. They hit hard, and there's a lot of them.
They can cancel your arts too, I think. Like your arts or whatever, they can cancel it.
Pretty much, like other than like Joshua and Estelle both have an area effect type move. Joshua has one that works in a line, which is very hard to set up because
it is.
The turn order, you can only move, and your next turn will get moved up a little bit, but not by a lot. And it's very quick for the enemies to get out of alignment there. And Estelle does have her hurricane move that hits an area, but it doesn't hit very hard. So really, your only bet to have a chance of taking out multiple enemies at once right now is area arts, which I managed to get one or two of, just from structuring my orbments. I learned to not just chuck whatever in there. So Estelle had a wind type area move that helped me out, but it kept getting cancelled because they hit so often. But I finally beat up the goddamn sheep, and we made it to the gate, to the, what was it?
Crone Pass.
Crone Pass.
Crone
Pass, which is where we hand him off to another bracer.
Another junior bracer.
A very eager junior bracer.
Yeah, very eager, very pumped. And
young Melvin.
You get a cute little moment of, Estelle and Joshua being like, wow, seeing another junior bracer doing his best makes me want to do my best too. Which you already were doing your best, besties, but it's cute that you're, like, encouraging each other. Yeah,
they're probably just impressed that he looks so competent and isn't, like, questioning his job in front of clients, which is what they've been doing to date.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a nice little diversion. Dropped off this dude.
It was.
And then, luckily, it's pretty easy to sort of hike back and head to Ravennue.
It is. Although I did, before I took off to find this guy, I went to look for Olivier again, because after we dropped him off in Bose, he was at the market, and you could just see him being like, wow, the market's great. And then I could not find him after talking to Niall and before leaving. I was so bummed. I looked everywhere for him. So somebody, if you know where he is, tell me, please, because I searched for this man. But I couldn't find him, so I sadly did the escort mission, then went to Ravennue. And on our way to Ravennue this time, we meet a redhead on the trail who calls Estelle an amateur. He's like, Shara, I know Shara. Shara's cool. Joshua looks competent. Estelle, you look like an amateur. So...
just reading left and right, our poor girl. She also this man, redhead man, as he's described at this point. Redhead guy, let's be correct.
Yes.
He kind of looks like he's dressed as a leather S&M type. He's got all these strappy bits across his chest. And also he's just kind of an asshole, again. He's just like, you suck. Yeah,
it's one of those things, in a JRPG, everyone needs to wear multiple belts. And in this game, instead, all of the belts are on one person. That's kind of Agate's vibe.
Who?
Agate, that's his name. Because Shara knows him.
We do learn this literally moments later. I was just trying to freak you out.
Agate Another jewel name.
Yes, title alert.
Cool title alert.
We get Heavy Blade.
Yes.
The Heavy Blade. I like this as a title because I can imagine that people just called him the Heavy Blade guy, and eventually that got shortened to Heavy Blade, other than it being like a title that's bequeathed to you as you're getting knighted with a title. It's just like, oh, the Heavy Blade guy's dealing with that problem. Yeah, the Heavy Blade guy, and you can imagine Agate is like, he's not a talkative sort, so you can imagine he doesn't introduce himself. So people just call him the Heavy Blade guy, and eventually he got called Heavy Blade as shortened. Like, that's how I imagine how this name came around. And so I like this title better because I can imagine that it was just, you know, a short form for that guy, the Heavy Blade guy. Because his sword he's got like a Buster Sword type thing.
He's got like it's a heavy blade. They got it right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just funny that Shera's title, the Silver Streak, is a lot more evocative and poetic, and his name is Mr. Big Sword.
Exactly.
We learn that he's got some sort of backstory with Cassius. He's got some beef with Cassius, it seems like, but we don't really go into a lot of detail.
Yeah, we get the impression he respects him, like he respects Cassius' competence, but he does not like Cassius.
Yes, it's professional respect.
Exactly, yeah. And then he continues on his way. He's leaving Ravennue. He's going the other direction. We go to Ravennue. And when I start talking to people, there's a lot of commentary about Ravennue being occupied during the 100 Days War. And that makes sense because it's pretty close to Haken Gate. Like, if you think about it, that's probably, if you're not looking at how roads go and you're just like tanks going as whatever the shortest route is, it's probably the closest to that gate. And it was the first place occupied, presumably occupied for the longest amount of time since it was the first one, and presumably it wouldn't have been liberated first. And there was tragedy.
I mean, it's a pretty good staging ground for an invasion. It's just inside the border. You've got supplies from the town, and you've got a mine behind the town for more supplies. So it's a good staging ground. But yes, it's definitely left an impact on the town.
I found the town elder, who tells me that he comments on how Agate is a sad loner. He's like, oh, you saw Agate. Oh, you were with him? No, we just crossed paths with him because we're both bracers. And he's like, oh, too bad. I was hoping he was traveling with you guys because he's a sad loner.
Yeah, he seems pretty empathetic and knowledgeable about Agate's backstory. He's like, oh, I'm a bit sad about that guy.
And Agate is from this town. You get the impression. So it gives you a little more, like, knowing that this place was occupied and there was clearly tragedy, you're like, maybe he has angst and isn't just an asshole. Doesn't mean that angst excuses being an asshole, but you're like, okay, like, clearly everyone from this town has some sort of trauma because they're all talking about how traumatized they are. The elder's wife, she makes some comment. She's like, I still, when I close my eyes, remember the war and the burning of the flesh and the whatever, and I'm like, oh my god, this is pretty horrifying. This is...
Chill, lady, you're talking to a child you just met.
Yeah, it was a bad time there, clearly.
He does flag to us who saw the shape in the sky, though, which was some kid named Louis.
So we go find Louis, who's hanging out around the orchard. And he's sexist, because all little kids are, except Pat.
He's a weird little kid. Like, the first thing he asks is like, oh, are you merchants here to buy fruit? And I was like, what the fuck kind of child is this?
I'm like, maybe that's the only reason anyone ever comes to Ravennue.
Yeah, I was like, what kind of child is this? Immediately followed in my notes by, oh, another sexist one. Because, yeah, he's got shit to say about ladies again.
And then Estelle spins her stick really cool, and then he stops being sexist because her spinning stick is so cool.
I did love this little custom animation as well of her spinning her stars.
It's such a cute animation.
Followed by, like, posing with a little victory sign.
Yeah, you get it on the loading screen at the beginning, like when you start up the game, when it's loading the title screen, you get different like little character animations, battle animations, and it's the same animation as the Estelle one. It's really cute.
Yeah, and it seems like they kind of unlock more of them in time with where your save file is, because it was only after meeting and getting introduced by name that I started seeing Olivier in the title screen load as well. So I like that. It's like a random selection of faces I know at that point, which very clever little piece of design. It's another way of just sort of like entrenching you in the story, because you're like, oh, it's that guy.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. But then you get also this dialogue, and at one point, and I think this might come after we get info, but I want to flag it now. Estelle says, boys don't cry. And I go, Estelle, stop, bestie, don't. That's what my notes say. So, Estelle apparently isn't immune to sexism herself, even though she should know better. But no, she does say that. And we also get a weird comment. Shera says Estelle's really good with kids. And I'm like, I thought that was Joshua's whole thing. Like, I thought last chapter we were going on
She's
about
mostly been argumentative with kids, yeah.
I guess if the kids like sticks, then she's got them covered.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just it's a write-off. Although her cool staff move did immediately change this kid's mind about women. So maybe
Yes.
Estelle's mission in life is just to cure misogyny with a big stick. Because
That is exactly whether she has to spin it or beat someone with it.
as a member of the male species, I can confirm we love a big stick. You're like, oh, big stick. But yeah, she's nailed it on
Big
the head.
stick's great.
She's really gonna revolutionize Liberl.
She is. So, but we learned from this kid that that night he saw two big shadows in the sky. One was smaller than the other, like a mom and a child, I think he says. Which is kind of a cute analogy for a small airship and a big airship that is like a parent leading a child. And we learned that they went north, so towards the mines. So we're like, okay, let's go check out the mine area.
Yeah,
So we head off there.
One thing I did before heading off to the mines myself, because I had explored the full map of the trail while doing that extermination mission.
Yes, me too.
I just ran all over trying to find chests, see what's out there. I made it all the way to the mine that we're about to go to and saw that the door was locked. And I was hoping that would be like, oh, look at me, I'm so smart. So I went back to talk to the mayor to see if I could be like, hey, I've been to the mine because that's where we need to go next. Can you give me the key?
Mm-hmm.
But the mayor has nothing to say about it. But he is kind of talking to himself a bit, referring to how he thinks that the shadow that was seen at night might be him. And that's it.
Yeah.
He just says, it might be him. And I was like, ooh, another nondescript reference to a shadowy person. Didn't really have any explanation on what that was. So I was like, all right, well, back to the mine. So shall we go,
off to the mine.
to the Ravennue Trail next?
You feeling lucky?
All right, so we head all the way back to the mine, find out it's locked officially, and have to turn around and go straight back
What's
to
fun
town.
is Estelle. Estelle is the one who noticed. She's like, hey, it feels like there's air flowing out of the mine. And which is cool that Estelle gets to notice something. And then Joshua does the thing where he licks his finger and holds it up into the air and is like, yes, there's an airflow. And that's so fucking funny that he literally does that thing.
He's
So I
very
just love that
grounded,
little bit.
and then you know what? He loves Estelle, but it's trust but verify every time.
Yes. So he does that. He's like, oh, you're right, Estelle. So we head back to Ravennue for the key. And I stop into the bar/hotel at this point. And there's a character there who has a portrait, who I was excited to see because I know these games. She's got a pretty bow on her head, and she knows Shara. But that's all we get there. But the other thing that happens while we're in the bar...
I didn't see this. Ooh.
We don't get her name yet. She's there. She's cool. There's a mention that her sword training, she's doing training in the sword, and her training isn't coming along as well as she'd hoped, but you get the impression maybe she's a bracer or the junior bracer or something, she knows Shara through work. Anyway, she's great.
What color is her hair? Just to see if I can figure this out.
Brown.
I'm at a loss. How exciting.
Yeah, I'll when we meet her
With that exotic brown
chapter,
hair.
when we get there, I'll point her out. Then the other thing that happens in the bar is I go and I buy some apple ice cream. And that was the part where I flagged for everybody listening that this is where the infinite money trick comes in, which is boring as shit if you actually try to do it forever to get actual infinite money. But if you're trying to make a buck, the ingredients for apple ice cream collectively cost less than you can sell apple ice cream for. So if you buy the ingredients in bulk, make a bunch and sell it off, you'll make a profit. It's not a huge profit, so you'll have to do a bunch of it. So it's generally something that you're not going to want to... If you want to sit there for an hour and do it over and over again until you literally hit infinite money, go ahead, be my guest. I didn't do that, but I do use it when I'm like, I'd like a little extra room. So that's my little special tip and trick to everybody.
I will be taking that under advisement because I would love to have a bit more money to work with at the moment.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
I'll have to do that before we depart from Bose eventually. Okay, good to know, good to know.
And at this point, we go find the mayor to get the key. We go to his... I went to his house. Yeah, his wife is like, oh, he's off at the graveyard. This is when he cleans it every day.
At which point I said, there's a graveyard, because I clearly had not explored the town in full.
No, it's kind of off to the side. There's only one path to get down there. You can't just walk in there from any angle. So you go down, and there's a bunch of normal graves, and then one big monument at the end. And if you read it, it has a list of names of people who died during the invasion and occupation 10 years ago.
Yeah. What's quite funny is when you walk up and start this conversation with the mayor at the big gravestone, Scheherazade is immediately like, that gravestone's a bit much, don't you think? She's like reading him for the ostentatiousness of this big marker, at which point he turns around and says, it's a war memorial, to really put her in her place.
But no, it's a memorial for like a dozen people who died in the war. Which in this town, that's like half the population.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, sure, come on. So, and he says, every day at this time of day, he comes and he cleans the memorial, or, tidies it, maintains the grave. And our gang, before asking him for the key, we say, can we pay our respects at the grave? Do you mind? And so we take a minute to, give some prayers at the grave, which is nice. Especially knowing that, our gang was also touched by also experienced loss. Sharon knew her mom, Estelle's mom, and obviously Josh was part of the family, even if he didn't know her. So,
yeah.
And obviously Estelle lost her mom. So all three of them, have a personal connection and understand this loss. So they give their prayer, and then they go back to the elder's house, because you can't talk about keys in front of a grave. And he gives us the key there. And we go back, all the way back through that long, windy trail.
Yes, back to the mine. Pretty short trip at this point. This was where I was at the point where like combat just wasn't giving me any benefit anymore, because I was only getting 1 or 2 XP per fight. So I just kind of turboed my way through, just ran from any fights that I encountered because it wasn't worth my time, and I didn't want to deplete any resources in case I might need them once we get into the mine. But once we get there, it's a pretty quick trip through the mines, honestly.
Yeah, the mine itself is way shorter than the path to get to the mine.
Yeah.
So we get there, and we find the bandits, and the Lynd is there. Big airship, missing airship.
Yes, and I have to say, I loved the scale of the airships compared to the people sprites, because it's a big map that it's rendering all at once, because, again, we have to remember this was like a PSP game originally, so it's showing this huge model of both airships with the teeny tiny little sprites, and it really gives you a sense of, like, scale.
Scale, yeah.
And how impressive this airship technology is, and that they found a mine that had an open area big enough to fit 2 of them in there.
Yes, it's pretty cool. But we see the bandits, we listen in for a moment, and then we go confront them to arrest them. And Estelle is such a fucking goober. She refers to her gang as the League of Extraordinary Bracers.
Yes.
And everybody is like, what? And she's pretty mad that they all leave her hanging and make her look like an idiot.
Fully going into like a Team Rocket intro in this moment that she hasn't told anyone else about, and then she turns around and is like, why aren't you doing the custom choreography that I imagined?
Yeah. Which, Estelle, I would back you up. It wouldn't be what you imagined, but I would go full in. Everyone else is being a loser.
Yeah, so we introduce ourselves as Braces? Braces. We introduce ourselves as Braces. We do get a little message from Kyle Capua in his cute little fur-lined jacket and his goggles. Because we announced that we're with the guild, and he said, you must not be involved with the others, or something to that effect.
He says, you're not supposed to be here yet.
Yes.
Yet.
Which is interesting. Do we have some rats in the guild? Exciting.
We may or may not get follow-up on this. So we get that little message, but then it's time to fight. And fight we do. I found this not too bad in terms of boss fights. I mean, there's a lot of them, but because I have lots of area effect arts, so I found this boss fight wasn't too bad because I have all these area of effect arts now. It was a pretty chill time. And because the bandits kept coming at me in person, I was able to line them all up for Joshua's line craft. So that was pretty cool. I got through that pretty nicely, but unfortunately the bandits still escape afterwards.
I didn't have too bad of a time with this fight either. I didn't have as much luck because I only have 1 area effect art. I don't have the optimized setup just yet. It just took a while. Although I was disappointed that after all the effort and work I put in to beat that fight, that I only got 9 XP for it, for a boss fight, which is wild.
That is really sad.
But yeah, we beat them down, and then Kyle says, nah, smoke bomb, and just kind of
pulls out that smoke bomb. It's great. And they take off in the little ship, but the Lynd is still there. They don't manage to take away the whole giant airship because it's too huge. So we get to go and explore the Lynd. And we go around to every room. And what's cute here is that there's little flavor text as you go around. Like, you can interact with a few things, and you just get little bits of info, like, here's the Gerbil engine, oh, they've stripped it. Here's, I guess, where the passengers are. Here's the, where the pilot sits. Like just little bits of flavor text as they comment on how an orbital aircraft works. But I found that cute. And then once you've been to every room, you find the hostages are not there. The missing people are not there. Which is pretty sad. So they've clearly been offloaded somewhere.
They managed to escape with their ship and the hostages, it seems like.
Yeah, wherever they were. We are depressed and go back out. And all of a sudden, the whole fucking army is there.
Goddamn, General Morgan is back to ruin our day once again. We're already in a bad mood, and then Mr. Hate shows up to arrest us, it seems to be his idea.
Yeah, he says, you were found with this airship, the missing airship. That means you must have been the hijackers, or you must be in league with the bandits, and so we're arresting you.
Yeah, he's very much like, unless there's any evidence to the contrary, this is you. And we're sort of like, oh, we've got evidence. And he's like, I'm not listening, go to prison.
Yeah, so we get locked up in Haken Gate, which has a prison underneath, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
We have a little chat in the cells, and Josh notes the fact that Kyle said you're not supposed to be here yet.
Yes.
And that implies that. And now that the army showed up, we can think maybe it was that the army, they knew the army was about to show up, and so somebody tipped him off. So maybe the rat is in the army and not in the guild. But either way, a rat is a rat, and that's not good for security against airship hijackers. And then we discover that we're not alone in prison.
Oh, yes. There is a someone in the neighboring cell known by their self-confidence and narcissism.
And musical talent.
Couldn't forget that one. It's Olivier. He's back. And I really enjoy that they've got a locked camera angle at this point where he's sort of obscured by the wall between the cells. So you get no hint that he's in the next cell over until the cutscene sort of shifts the camera. It's a fun little reveal. I quite enjoyed it.
It is. And so we learn why Olivier's in jail, and Olivier really wants to tell us. Everyone else is like, I'm sure I'll regret the fact that I've prompted this story from you, but Olivier wants to tell us. Olivier went to the fancy restaurant that the mayor took us to, and struck a deal to be their pianist. I did note earlier in that chapter when I visited the restaurant that they were talking about hiring a pianist, so, continuity.
Oh.
And then he was all excited about getting his job, so he got some food on the house, because he was working in exchange for food and drink, not for wages. And he was having such a good time that he picked up a fancy bottle of wine and drank some of it, he says. And then the owner of the restaurant, or the manager of the restaurant, came over, and Olivier was like, I'm not greedy, so I offered him to share it with me, and he got really mad. And it turns out that it's his famous Grand Chardonnay that was worth like 500,000 mira or something like that.
A ridiculous amount. And I think Olivier said something about it. It's like, oh, I found this dusty old bottle, so nobody wanted it, so I'll just drink it.
Yeah, and we learn that he didn't just pour himself a glass, he chugged the whole bottle.
Yeah, he downed that thing in one. He had drops left to offer another glass.
And he got locked up for it.
Yeah.
And he continues to tell his tale of woe, and everyone falls asleep. Like, they literally
fully
fall asleep, and as he's talking, he's like, wait, did I hear a zzz from you? Like a zzz, like sleepy, like snore sound? Everyone fell asleep to his story. So we all sleep through the night. And we wake up in the morning, and Mayor Maybell, again comes in clutch. She's getting us freed. Or rather, she came, talked to Morgan, and told Morgan that we're Cassius's kids, which apparently changes everything. Morgan knows Cassius.
He knows Cassius. He gets really mad thinking about Cassius and then excuses himself, which is an example of a well-adjusted man.
Yeah, but he knew Lena, right? Cassius' wife, Estelle's mom, and he even met Estelle when Estelle was little, he says. And she was really little.
When she was a little baby.
So he was he seemingly was a family friend, or at least like a close co-worker of Cassius's. Something like that. Because he knew the whole family. And then he excuses himself because he's not rational about Cassius.
Yeah, I really like that, where he's just like, I'm getting really mad and I'm gonna leave. And it's like, that's okay, you're taking anger management classes. Well done.
Yeah. We learn also from, I think Maybell then kind of lets on that Cassius left the service to become a bracer, and that's why he hates bracers so much, which is a pretty insane thing. Like, first of all, Cassius lost his wife in the war. Do you not have enough compassion to understand why someone might leave military service? A single father, a bereaved father with a child, a 6-year-old child who's just lost his wife, might leave the military?
Yeah.
Like, the trauma alone of, you know, the grief and trauma, whatever, and then he has a 6-year-old to look after, and he's a single parent now. Of course he needs time. Like, of course he's might leave the military. It makes sense, but no, it makes him hate all bracers.
Yeah, not even the empathy, just like, oh, your wife died and you wanted to follow her career, potentially, if we're going with that canon,
Yeah.
to honor her memory.
Or at least work closer to home.
Or at least work closer to home. I worked in the military and it didn't save my family, like, operating on a large scale, so I'm going to work on a smaller scale locally in my community, power to you, and make the impact in my home for my kid, soon to be kids. But no, he storms off. We get a bit of backstory. Then we also get an update on Olivier's Grand Chardonnay drama, which is pretty much just that the mayor, like, forgives him for it because he helped out.
Because she owns the restaurant, and she's the one who bought that thing for 500,000 lira in the
She
first
explicitly bought it. And she's like, so not only is she inherited generational wealth, enough that she can spend $500,000, basically, on a bottle of wine. Crazy.
I'm choosing to believe, because she does mention it was auctioned off. I'm choosing to believe it was a charity auction.
I hope
and
so.
so part of the reason for the price was, like, because it was a charitable donation to something. I'm choosing to believe that because at least then I can justify that, like, because you're doing it for a charitable purpose, you pay way more than, like, you might for, like, even though that's an absurd amount of money for anyone to be even though it's a huge amount of money.
Yeah. And I wonder what kind of charity it
like,
would have been, you know, buying ornaments for children or something, you know.
Maybe like a recovery, maybe for orphans. You know what? Maybe for orphans after the war.
You know what? That's a good plan, because if you're an orphan, you're probably the hero of a story. So
you are.
You need, like, a battle ornament early so you can be ready to save the world or whatever.
Exactly. This is a JRPG. But yeah, she lets Olivier free because, you know, we're like, you know, you might not be able to free him if the owner of the restaurant wants to press charge. And she's like, no, I own the restaurant, so it's fine. So she frees Olivier, and we all go back to her mansion. Olivier is like, you know, I want to help you in return. Maybe I can go work for the restaurant after all. And she's like, that might be a bit awkward now that they, like, threw you in jail and you stole their most valuable possession. What if you help out the bracers on the task I'm about to give them? And he's like, that sounds fair. And Estelle is not happy about the fact that we suddenly got settled with Olivier, but Mabel and Olivier seem to be hitting it off, so
he's got a new job, congratulations, and we've got a new job, which is investigating more break-ins, because more stuff has been stolen around town.
Yeah, the South Block of Bose, which we probably should have mentioned when we first got to Bose, the way you know it's a big city as opposed to Rolent is that it takes 2 screens.
Yeah,
to cover it. So, whereas Rolent was all on 1 screen. So in the South Block, there was a burglary, and we have to go investigate it. So, that brings us to the cutoff point, that we now have our assignment, and we have an extra party member, and we can save.
Yeah, it's been an action-packed first half of the chapter.
It has.
A lot of new information. I like getting all these, like, little factoids about the world and the Great Collapse and history and technology. And a few more hints about what's to come. We love an ominous him or her or them as just kind of like an undisclosed party who's clearly important, but we're not going to learn the name yet. But yeah, it's time to track down some burglars in the town. But we'll be saving that for next episode.
It's over.
So next episode of the podcast, we'll be covering the remainder of Chapter 1. So from this moment through to the end, I will say that this half of the chapter, it's a little less packed, but there are some big events that happen. We'll dive into the concluding events of Chapter 1 and then maybe have a bit of a debrief and unpack about how we're feeling about the story at this point, because we're setting all the scenes. There's only 5 chapters total, so we've got 4 more chapters of story. So the scene is set. We know where we're going. We've got some obstacles. We've got some questions. We've got some answers. It's all very exciting.
And some new friends.
We have a bisexual disaster following us around to go with
a Nepo baby mayor.
We've got a senior bracer who's a bit too violent towards children and anyone.
Yeah.
And then a brother-sister ? Who seem really close, but that girl don't get no respect. Poor Estelle.
She don't. Poor Estelle. So, but I think that'll wrap us up. So, thank you so much for listening, joining us for another episode of Trails Through Trails. You can find us on the Orbital Net at trailspod.online. at TrailsPod on Blue Sky, Instagram, and on X, the Everything app, better known as Twitter. Or you can send us an email at trails3trails@gmail.com with any questions, comments, corrections, or compliments. Next week, we'll be discussing, as Matt just said, up to the end of Chapter 1. So if you haven't caught up to that point yet, now's your chance. Until then, I've been Lex.
And I've been Matt.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye. Hooray! Man, that was long.
Yeah, oh my god.